All right, so it's 6:02. Today is the August 28th, 2023 meeting of the Easthampton, Massachusetts Conservation Commission. I've got to read this thing at the beginning here, right?
Yeah.
So this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio, video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting.
Okay. And then just for folks online, everyone is muted and their cameras can't be activated yet. But if you do have a comment you want to make at any point, you can use the raise hand function to do so. That'll put you in the queue, and then we will go through each person and give everybody a chance to make any comments they may have.
All right, so we're being recorded. It says right here, confirm recording.
Yes, good.
Number 2, call to order. Okay, and so item 3. Public concerns. Are there any non-agenda items being brought before the commission tonight for discussion?
I haven't received any. In the crowd has anything they'd like to add, you can raise your hand, but otherwise, we carry on. I'm not seeing anything yet.
All right. So then on public hearings and meetings, item number 1 is a public hearing, notice of intent filed by Faro Engineering on behalf of Tasty Top Development LLC for a new mixed-use commercial and residential development with associated stormwater management system at 93, 95, and 97 Northampton Street, map 128, lot 112, 113, and 114. Request filed on November 23rd, 2022, Mass DP file number 151033. And I believe we had continued this to our next meeting.
That's correct. At the last meeting, the commission chose to continue straight to the meeting scheduled for September 11th at 6 p.m. And I'm still waiting to receive their response to the last review by Wheels and Thomas, the supplemental review. And I'm working to draft up another new scope to extend the contract with Wheels and Thomas for the peer reviewing services. So nothing new necessarily to report until that meeting.
Okay. So then moving on to item B, public hearing, notice of intent filed by R. Levesque Associates Inc. on behalf of One Industrial Lofts LLC for Tract 2 of mixed-use commercial residential mill redevelopment project with associated stormwater management system at 1 Ferry Street at 153 Lot 2. Request filed on July 6, 2023, Mass DP file number 151324. So is there anyone to discuss this item tonight?
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan Nelson from R. Levesque Associates.
Hey, Ryan.
I'm going to try and attempt to share my screen.
You should be able to.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, great. So quick recap. There was a prior project for the same site, Track 2, east of the canal, and the project proponent, Mr. Michon, would like to change the layout. So the building, there's an existing building here along the canal that's going to be demoed. And instead of it constructing within general footprint, the building is being shifted to the east, a new building constructed, parking entrance coming off of Ferry Street and descending down in grade around the building for a drive underneath parking garage. At the last meeting, we had discussed the canal details in terms of their retaining wall and how the sidewalk would integrate, and then the ornamental fencing or guardrail along the top. This will all create, this whole project will create a net increase of compensatory flood storage. So that's not an issue. So the work is really within the buffer zone to the canal within an existing developed area. The last meeting, it came up the issue of cleaning out the canal and potential debris in the canal. And through talking with the applicant and reviewing the regulations and the permitting pathways, we are no longer pursuing trying to dewater or reroute the water of the canal And we do not propose any disturbance to land underwater for this project. And we'd like to stay consistent with the previous conditions from the prior notice of intent regarding that aspect. So no new changes since the last Concom meeting aside from that.
Okay. So then it seemed like, taking those questions aside, there weren't that many other questions related to the upland work, as I recall.
There were questions about the tree planting.
Yeah, we talked about tree plantings and shading a little bit last time. Can you remind us what ended up with that, Ryan?
Sure. So the existing canal itself is incised, at least 15 feet. We're going to be adding about a foot to the top of the existing wall. We have some trees proposed along that edge of parking. You can see here a couple on the island there, one at the end. Our chief reason for not planting more trees along the canal walls, we're intending to utilize the existing canal wall, so we don't want to jeopardize the integrity by planting trees that could potentially exploit any crevices or cracks and provide a structural risk over the coming years for the canal wall. The applicant is proposing an ornamental fence with hanging plantings off of the railing or the fence along the canal.
Okay. Yeah, so we were talking about that last time. So I don't know, to me, that logic makes sense.
Didn't you ask for details of the new wall design? Was that for the canal?
Yeah, that was something that the commission had requested before, was a detailed, wall, and I think provided, Brian, am I correct? So that
Yes. Yep, I can pull that up if you guys would like to see it again.
Do commissioners have questions remaining?
The only other things that I had was to talk about potential conditions, but I don't know if you guys said other stuff.
Yeah, I guess I was, we could just flip through the conditions from the last, the current order of conditions is active, and see if there is anything in there that shouldn't be, things that should do it.
Mm-hmm. And then, do you want to see that wall detail first before we do that, or?
Yeah, we can.
If you can, Ryan.
Sure, just hunting for it. Give me a second.
No rush.
Actually, Cassie, do you have it from the one I sent you? Might be quicker.
Well, Brian, is looking, if there are conditions in the old order of conditions that are no longer applicable to this with the change, or anything that seemed weird or incorrect that the applicant may have had questions about?
No, I don't believe so. Stormwater system's generally the same. Limit of work's not changing, so I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay, I did take a look through those. I'll show you this first, the wall, and then I can tell you what I kind of flagged to see if it still was relevant. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Does this look right, Brian? Yeah, I think so. Oh, there we go.
That's it. Yes.
So, okay, existing bottom now, and then it's for the top part that has more information there.
Yeah, so existing canal is about 17 feet below grade. We're adding a 1 foot knee wall to the top of the wall just to provide safety and in case cars stray onto the sidewalk. And then the railing would be mounted on top of that proposed knee wall.
Okay.
Any questions about that before? Okay.
For me.
Okay,
Going back,
So for the order of conditions, the original order of conditions for this project, this is file number 151-299, which is technically still active, but they're requesting a stricter compliance for it. I looked through to see if anything, see if the commission still want to do some of these things or see if they were still relevant. One is for its condition 15, which is kind of coupled with condition 31, which is related to the monitoring requirements. And so typically what the commission requires is weekly reporting related to the erosion controls and typically the lines where the SWIP, which this project I'm assuming will have. And then reporting after every 0.25 inch rain event. The thing with track one was that it was very limited. The erosion controls was really just one stretch that was needed. So I didn't know if the commission still felt like, I guess I should ask Brian what the erosion controls during construction will be for this track. We haven't explicitly gone over that yet, I don't think. But yeah, typically the commission requires once a week.
Yeah, so for this case, the site is going to be interior sloping, most of it. So the building area, or sorry, I should say the parking to the west of the proposed building will be the low point of the site. So we don't expect any sheet flow to leave the construction site. Obviously along, hold on, I'm just cross-verifying the plan. There's a section of connection to the bike trail that climbs up the hill. So that area, we do have silt fence proposed for a very short segment so that any disturbance from that slope doesn't migrate down into the work zone or the canal. But aside from that, everything's kind of existing hardscapes that's going to be removed and it's all interior sloping.
So Ryan, just to clarify that the building will actually slope back up to Ferry Street.
So the east side, or sorry, the south side of the proposed building will be relatively at grade, a couple feet below Ferry Street. But then as you go north along the building, the grade is descending until it wraps around the building to the west side, and that would be a drive underneath. So
I'm not great with north and south, but that's away from the canal. Is that what you're saying?
the buildings, yeah, here, let me just show my screen again. The building would be parallel with the canal.
I'm kind of the interior sloping, which way it goes.
Yeah, this plan, you can see it. So we start at like an elevation of 143 at the street,
Yeah.
and it's descending 140, 135, 130, 125, 120, and 119 is the low point at these catch basins in the parking area.
Okay, so it's basically kind of sloping like down toward the hill that goes up to the bike trail.
Correct, yes.
Are you proposing any, like a line of a sock or something along, towards where that bridge that currently goes over the canal is? I think it wasn't exactly right there on the other side, but that would be the only thing I would think that would be similar to what was used on track one.
Yeah, on track one, I think, Mike, if you're on, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but those rubber filled socks that sat on top on grade. And then there would be obviously your typical inlet filter fabric sacks within the catch basins.
Yeah, I mean,
That's correct, Ryan.
Thanks.
my inclination is keep the same conditions relative to stormwater. It'll be, there'll be a fair amount of earthwork and moving things around, demolishing in the parking areas and moving things, we'll want to keep reports going and those kind of things.
Okay. Okay, so just to reiterate, that's once a week and then after every 0.25 inch rain event, which is basically typically, and is in that scope. Cool. The next one was, talking about the erosion control barriers, just generally. So you guys, are you still proposing to use the netting that was talked about before during demolition of the existing building along the canal, over the canal, or?
Mike, can you speak to that at all?
We were gonna just be similar to what the previous order was, how the previous order was written.
Okay, so
Keep the building from falling in the canal as they're demolishing.
it's my understanding, to figure it out. So what, it's specifically to that, can I ask, so condition 25 of pre-construction condition part E. This is outlining what should be submitted to the commission before work begins.
Yeah.
And this condition lists details regarding preventative measures, devices, and plans for protecting the canal from pollution and debris accumulation and construction, as well as detail on equipment and methods to be used for removal for large items in the canal. All preventative measures and remediation measures proposed shall also contain information relative to the specific construction activities and timeline such measures apply to. Dust control measures shall contain water only. So it seems like in the previous order, the details of what was going to be used to protect the canal were allowed to be a pre-construction submission. So I don't know if the commission still wants to do that, or if there's other information you want, or I don't know. And it's like, I don't know if you remember anything else other than that was submitted related to it. I wasn't here that we did that. During that.
No, I think that's correct. So, and again, I just want to be clear that, you know, we don't want to be reporting when we're not under construction. So in other words, you know, when we go to file for demolition permits and construction, then we would start to do our weekly reporting.
Right, so yeah, that's a separate item. So that item, typically what's required is that as a pre-construction requirement is you tell me who's going to be doing the reporting. And then once you start is when you have to start giving us that weekly reporting. There's a description in there that you can ask for a pause of the reporting if construction pauses. So then you can ask for a pause, and then when it starts back up again, you start going, and then you stop formally once you get the certificate of compliance. Is typically how it's worded. But my question right now is for, there's another pre-construction requirement with this for details related to, the way the commission did it before was that before the work can start, you have to give us details of what you're gonna do to protect the canal. And I was asking kind of the commission if that's still something, the way they wanna go about it, or if you remember if there's anything else additional that was submitted related to how the plan to protect the canal. It sounded like, I don't know, potentially netting or something, but I'm realizing I wasn't here during the original hearing process, so I don't know if there was other stuff originally described, but here it's kind of listed as being determined just pre-con after the permit is issued.
Cassie, I believe that's correct. Mike, I don't think anything was submitted, right, regarding details. We didn't get to that pre-construction point yet, I don't think.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess I think I'm okay with leaving it as it is. I mean, the intent is just to keep the building and the associated debris out of the canal. So, you know, once it's a little bit farther along and you have a little more information on how that would work, then, you know, you could work it out with Cassie at the part of the pre-construction meeting, or bring it to the commission if there's anything like unusual.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it basically says, I think the only part that I want to make sure made sense was method for debris removal for large items in the canal. So I don't know.
Can you read that again?
I'll read the whole thing.
Just that last thing.
Yeah, it says, as well as details on equipment and methods to be used for debris removal for large items in the canal. And that seemed to be something the commission was concerned about last meeting, was like removal of stuff. I don't know if that means existing things in the canal or things that might incidentally end up in there from demolition.
I mean, so Cassie, there, the canal is filled with debris. So I think all of that would be worked out in a pre-construction planning and meeting with you.
Yeah, I just want you to get a heads up that like I wouldn't, the commission was concerned about dewatering and like you guys, it seems like we're not pursuing any kind of like shutting down the canal so that you can move.
Not at this point, no.
Okay. And it's, that is not something I don't think I would be able to work out with you as a pre-construction requirement. Just sound to me, this pertains to, I'm interpreting that as debris from demolition, not the existing material. I don't know, just based off of what the commission was concerned about the last meeting. It didn't seem like, because it just seems like further permitting would technically be required to remove what's existing in there.
Yeah, kind of think where we are is if there, like there's a whole host of different regulations beyond what we do that would be involved in removing material that's like kind of well embedded in that canal or whatever. But if there are specific items that, everybody agrees really should come out, like I have a hard time coming up with what that might be right
Like
now.
a chunk of concrete that falls through the netting.
Well, yeah, like a chunk of concrete that falls through the netting, or a car, if there's a car in there, or who knows, like maybe we can all agree that should probably just come out as a benefit to everybody, but we can work that out during the actual project or whatever.
That makes sense to me. And also too, if you want to do like a more thorough clean, you can always come for a separate permit for that.
Right.
As a canal thing. So, okay. Me as is. I'm just making my notes here.
Let me just, I just want to make, so we have this for our notes, Cassie. So, and this is, I'm glad we're talking this through because you have to realize if we decide to put netting in there, we can't clean out the debris that's in there.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So just so that everybody's clear on that. Because we can, until we're done, then we, when we're done, then we could take the netting off. If we decide to use the netting, and again, we can talk about this in the pre-construction planning, then we can clean it out, but we can't clean it out if the netting's in the way.
Okay, so you can't stop the existing debris that's, accumulated over many years. You can't do that while the netting is in place. But,
Correct.
But it seems like the intent of this condition is to make sure that there's something in place to protect the canal during demolition, so nothing is added, or there's a reasonable attempt is made to not have material added to that area. And then maybe if you guys want to remove stuff from the canal that's always been there, that would be a different discussion potentially.
Yeah. Yes.
Does that make sense to you, Mike?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my question to that point was just if the netting doesn't hold because it's something really heavy that happens,
that's right. There's something crazy.
then how do you get that out?
Yep. That would make sense. Yeah, so some kind of like contingency plan if there's some crazy thing goes in there.
Well, what I just heard him say is they can't do it during the construction. They'd have to get that out later. Because the net's in the way.
Yeah, if something new falls in beyond the net I would assume would be destroyed, right? If something so big fell in. We can kind of, maybe work on trying to figure out.
Maybe I'm overthinking it.
No, I think it's good to think about when we do sort this out, what the contingency plan is for that, if something big went in there. Yeah, okay. I'm just making my notes here, so. Okay.
Seems like the kind of thing that would be a little hard to control.
Yeah.
If I was demolishing the building, something would end up.
Like the whole building.
Probably a significant portion of it.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be some reasonable methods, you know what I mean? Because that is possible. So we just have to figure out, during our planning, pre-construction planning, what's reasonable to all of us.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry, just finish my notes here, apologies.
And Ryan, also, I think, so the end that's near Ferry Street which is higher, there's nothing to erode there? Is it all just, there's no erosion control on the Ferry Street end? Because it slopes down into your construction zone. Other end. that end, yeah, right there.
Yep, so there are catch basins within Ferry Street along the gutter line, the curb line of Ferry Street. We are proposing filter sacks to be installed in those existing catch basins that would catch potentially any track out or anything onto Ferry Street. But as soon as you leave the pavement of Ferry Street, it starts sloping interior into the site.
That's what I mean. Is there dirt there that could erode? Or is it all gonna be dug out anyway, because it's a building?
I believe, Mike, there's some rubble there, but it's actually a filled grade there, right?
That's a fill. It's a negative site, so that's a fill. So there'll be nothing that could erode there.
So we'd be building up hard pack and lifts to achieve the proposed grade.
Are the catch basins exactly the same as the ones that you just pointed to, or are these going to be bigger, different?
So the lighter gray ones within Ferry Street, those are existing, but these more bold symbols on site, those are proposed.
But are they the same make? Or are they larger? Are they different?
I can't speak to the status of the ones in Ferry Street, but the new proposed ones would be, typical and up to current standard what's required.
Okay.
If there aren't other questions that could go into the conditions in
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. So one of the conditions going back to the debris, under during construction, condition 29 is the permittee, their successor and or assigned shall remove any debris accumulated in the canal as a result of construction or demolition activities or for any other reason in an expedited manner. The commission reserves the right to order debris removal at any time. So again, I'm interpreting this that new material that could enter, not existing. I just want to make sure that made sense to you all.
Correct, yep. Agree.
Is that gonna be removed at what point after project's over?
Good question. I think that would be something that would be determined during when we set up the
Like, 'cause
plan.
it says accumulated, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
means over time.
Yeah, it's true. So you guys could add a requirement that you want it removed immediately or just before certificate of compliance is issued, or however you want to do that, or we can talk about that when they come with the plan when they're ready to get started.
Yeah, it seemed like we got the intent across okay.
Yeah, I think so, and we'll develop a contingency plan for something big at the construction meeting, and then anything that is accumulated because the net's there and you can't take it out, you do it before we issue a certificate of compliance.
Leaning towards like a contingent on the certificate of compliance, that's when certainly anything that new enters should be removed.
Or do we have the same thing as like other plans where they have to have it vegetated if they're not working on it for a while?
Yeah, just don't, yeah, there's all kinds of conditions like that in there. That's like a blanket. I mean, this site, it seems like it's primarily going to be unlandscaped and paved.
Yeah.
So it might not apply as much in the same ways, but that's like a boilerplate. I will keep it in for like, if there happen to be like vegetated places that I plan to be vegetated,
Yep.
they should be stabilized and all that good stuff.
Condition 44 covers that.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yep.
Okay. Existing. Sorry. Okay. I was gonna propose potentially rewording condition 36, which just says if the completed work differs from the final approved plans of record, and or the conditions in this order, a report must be submitted to the commission 30 days prior to the completion, specifying how the work differs. So It's more just saying that you have to come for a change request. Upon review and approval by the commission, the applicant may request in writing a certificate of compliance as described above. So it's just an interesting way that this is wording how change requests would go forward. Almost in that it seems like if it's completed and it differs, which we have that process, you know, for a certificate of compliance. If something wasn't reported as a change to the plan and then they come for a COC and it differs, the commission kind of reviews that and makes a decision on how they want to handle it. But that, I just thought that was really a little funny. Condition 39, the commission shall be notified of any necessary dewatering activities prior to the commencement of dewatering. Dewatering activities, if necessary, shall be continuously monitored to ensure that sediment-laden water is appropriately settled prior to discharge toward the wetland resource area. No discharge of waters is allowed directly into an area subject to jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. It just seems related to dewatering activities, which was the subject of discussion at the last meeting. I don't know if there was any modifications that commission monitor thinks that's appropriate.
No.
None proposed.
I think that's fine for footings and excavations and things.
Okay.
I don't really have an opinion about 36.
Okay.
We could strike it or leave it in or modify it. I don't care. I don't think it changes much. Maybe just leave it like it is to reduce workload.
Okay, I only have a few more. Condition 61 on the water quality. No rock salt, sodium chloride, calcium chloride shall be used on paved surfaces within the 100-foot buffer zone and or within areas that contribute drainage and runoff to the stormwater management system, and any arrangements for snow removal shall so stipulate. I didn't know if that's something the commission still made sense. I want to make sure too with the applicant that made sense, like they were prepared to be able to accommodate that.
Yeah, did we go over this recently with something else?
I know, I can't remember what it was though.
Well, we were talking about this salt at 9395 on Hampton Street.
Oh, correct, yeah.
Yep. Is that condition one that is in perpetuity on the adjacent parcel?
Good question. Good question. I don't remember. I can look it up. Typically, what we have in perpetuity here, the one that approaches that is pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers shall not be used within a 100-foot buffer zone. And that organics would be considered, but I can find the.
I mean, I think at 9395 North Hampton Street, they were talking about using low salt
And like sand, a combo.
and combo, but the sand also creates runoff sediment.
Did we ask about snow storage in this particular area?
Not yet.
No.
Yeah, where are you gonna store the snow? Brian?
So, hold on, let me zoom in here. So there will be areas at the end of the lot between the building, obviously shoulders. There's some small grassed islands here amongst the parking, but anything that, you know, can't be stored on site up to a certain amount would have to be removed off site.
Put it in the bottom.
So my guess is on the salt, these conditions are coordinated with that of the other project, which was permitted at the same time, the same owner, so. Okay, just keep spending.
Yeah,
Which said no rock salt.
I'm not sure. I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if likely if it was written at the same
I
time.
mean,
it's probably-
it's so close to the. It is.
Here we go. Water quality, yep. Condition 61, no rock salt. It's worded exactly.
Yep. Okay,
Cool. Another one was condition 66, which calls for native plant species Only native non-invasive plant species may be planted on site. Seed mixes shall also be 100% native non-invasive species. This shall be noted in the certificate of ongoing condition.
Sure.
And
Now, with the hanging plants, does that matter? Like if it comes into the water, something migrates? I mean, is that a concern or?
I don't know. Is it a concern of?
Well, I mean, if it was invasive and
well, that's what this condition is calling for, is for those to be.
was for, like, for plantings, I'm wondering about the ornamental
If they're
wall.
potted plants.
Yeah, is that still
Yeah.
considered planting? No,
I usually think of
Interesting.
plantings as something you're putting in the ground.
right. So as long as they're not invasive hanging planters.
I think the condition covers it.
Yeah, it's saying that, what is there? Non-invasive species. Yeah, it's up to you guys, really. I feel like that's sufficient. If you want to change it.
I think it
Can you
covers
read
it.
it again, Matt?
Yeah, the condition is, condition 66, plant species, only native, non-invasive plant species may be planted on site. Seed mixes shall also consist of 100% native, non-invasive species. This shall be noted in the certificate of compliance and shall be an ongoing condition.
If you could just add planted or hung on site.
But if you care, if it's what's on,
Well, if they're
They're hanging.
putting these ornamental hangers and they're using something that's invasive, if it falls in, if it breaks up, if it
really?
migrates, well, hey, I mean, if
This is
it's
how you think.
invasive, it's invasive. That's up to you guys, I'm just
I mean,
saying
most-
there's a possibility.
Most of the local nurseries don't carry invasive, but there's a change. Doesn't hurt to have it in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's our intent, right?
Yeah,
So
that's the intent.
let's emphasize it
Yeah.
and put it in there, put the word in there. Even maybe it would have covered it before, but now it's clear.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the other part is that the commission is also tasked with issuing a stormwater permit. I didn't have any notes about the conditions in the stormwater permit. I don't know if anyone else did, except for the changing, of course, of the bond amount. I don't even know if we need to change it. I mean, could be, let me get the note from the city engineer. Just to double check here. I want to say it was the same. Okay, here is the engineer's comments. I have reviewed the upgraded package and found it to be satisfactory. Normally, I would request that the applicant explore ways to infiltrate. Applicant has provided 2 test pits for the site. The test pits show the underlying material as urban fill and silt/clay beneath. In test pit 8, making filtration infeasible. Here that any storm is being directed to rain barrels or by grading to landscape/green to provide watering for vegetation. The proposed stormwater system looks very similar to the one, and I am okay with the original bond estimate, but it should be escalated for inflation since it was originally calculated in November of 2020. The 141,000 bond amount can be escalated ENR construction cost index for Boston from the time of the original bond estimate. I believe it was in November. They should provide the estimation from the ENR table and they provide the surety. I guess the question maybe for the applicant is if that's something you feel like you could provide. Or...
I will provide that, Cassie, yes.
Okay, do you think you'd be able to get that to me within, I guess the question is, if you can get it to me sooner than later, then I can just include it in the order, this permit that I'm gonna issue. Otherwise, I can just make a note that the bond should be whatever it was plus, you know, how it's described in the city engineer's comments.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I guess Maggie, it's up to you.
I think it's better that way because I know obviously I'll go as quickly as possible, but you know, I can't speak for other parties, you know, moving. So I think you hit it right to just you know, reiterate what Dan Murphy mentioned.
Gotcha. Cool, that makes sense to the commissioners then. Okay. Those are my conditions. I don't know if anybody had anything else.
Nothing from me, anything from anybody else?
No, nothing else.
So then the option for the commission would be for someone to make a motion to issue a order of conditions and then also issue a stormwater permit for the project.
Yeah, I would ask that motion just include that the new order becomes effective upon issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Oh, yeah, we
Existing
can
order.
pause and do that and then come back right after this. How are we gonna do it?
I don't think I just followed all that.
There's the existing order.
Oh,
They
the
also asked for.
certificate of compliance for that. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Okay. So make a motion that at 1 Ferry Street, no, is that right? One industrial, that the, I just completely lost my train of thought. Is it a notice of intent?
Yeah, so issue an order of conditions.
Should we issue an order of conditions for the notice of intent to build, to demolish the building that's there and rebuild another one?
And all the other stuff.
Based on all the notes we just talked about in terms of the order of conditions above. And that it will, because that along with the stormwater permit will become effective in a few minutes after we issue an order of compliance for the old. The old what?
Yeah, the old order of conditions,
The old order of
151, and
conditions.
stormwater permit, 1510299.
Thank you for the number.
No problem. There, second.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Carr, Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
And Commissioner Whittemore. He thought I was gonna forget, but. Aye. All right, motion carries.
And now,
So then, if in the interest of these folks' times, if we can just take out of order the request for certificate of compliance, just because it seems like that might be pretty quick and makes sense to do it.
Yes, okay, do I have a motion to take out of order the item 5A, request for certificate of compliance for 151299 1 Ferry Street, Track 2?
yes, you do, ditto.
And I'll second.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
Commissioner Whittemore. All right, so we are now on request for certificate of compliance, 1 Industrial Lots LLC, 1 Ferry Street, Track 2, Mass DP file number 151299, Ferry Street Mill Redevelopment Project Map 135 Lot 2 expires December 11th, 2024. So we have a request for a certificate of compliance.
Motion to issue certificate of compliance for no work completed on that.
That sounds good to me. Is there anything special we need to do with this motion, or is it?
No.
Okay.
The last meeting it was confirmed that the no work had been completed, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan or Michael, but Mike, but no work has been completed. We did a site visit to confirm that, and
And a motion to transfer the bond over to the new order.
no, they never got a bond. They never filled that because they never started, so that's
Oh,
not
okay.
necessary. But
Okay.
it's a good
I
point.
second that one.
Okay. All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks,
Aye.
Commissioner Whittemore.
Okay,
Motion carries.
all right.
All right, that is,
So there should be a form in there that you all can sign for this list C at least.
oh boy.
Sorry, it's all, I gotta find.
Sorry.
Oh, did I? Well, it's okay. If I didn't print it, then I can do it. I can use the original signature.
Is this not it?
Oh, yeah, this is it. Okay, sorry. And you just need to check off the one that's appropriate.
Which one is
Should
appropriate
be
here?
invalid, even though it's not that. That means that the work has been done. Just read the description.
And partial or invalid order of conditions. I'm not gonna fill out all this stuff. I'm just gonna sign it.
Yeah, that's good. And then Mike and Ryan, I will work on the order of conditions and get that to you. Technically, 21 days, but I try to get it done as soon as possible. So I'll get that over to y'all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Take care.
Oh, shoot, I gave you my agenda. I can so
Oh.
grab it up.
I don't know where it is
It's
in
in
here.
here somewhere.
Oh.
All right, so next on the agenda. Public hearing, notice of intent filed by GZAGO Environmental Inc. on behalf of HAAS Haas Home Products. Did I get that correct? Yes. Okay. LLC for restoration of existing single-family home with reestablishment of a yard area at 65 Lovefield Street, at 130 Lot 4, request filed on August 15th, 2023. And it looks like there's no Mass DEP file number
We
yet.
got one, yeah.
We got
one.
one. We did.
Yep, and the file number is, just for record, I want to say 151-325. That's on my TV. I have it. Let me just.
Or it's not it yet.
It's 151,
Yeah.
yeah. Dash 0325 is the file number, and when we get there, we can read those comments whenever the commission wants to, but I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay.
Okay, so administratively, we have a replacement narrative. So the project did change from the time that we submitted, those paper copies, so I have.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
You good?
And yeah, because you sent, I emailed the commission earlier today, because there was the revised one came. This is the
Right.
same as that revised.
Great.
Okay.
So you've emailed this then?
Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you.
And here's paper copies. If anyone wants them.
And actually, there's, a revision I emailed you at like 5:30, so that's the newest version. I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay.
It was just addressing some of the DEP comments.
Okay, well, yeah, we can, yeah.
I
So
don't think I do.
So what you're gonna do is I sent you the link to join the meeting virtually on email on Thursday. And you click that, and you can join. Just make sure you mute yourself, you turn your camera, and then you can share your screen. And if that doesn't work, I can do it here too. So whatever works for you.
Just talking that.
No, different one. That's for later. That's for the preliminary review. But this is for,
Did you upload it to the site?
I emailed you guys earlier today. I know, it was like randomly in the middle of the day. I should link to, I think it was attached.
It was, yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was around like 3 or something. And then, what else was I gonna say? Okay, good. Yes. And then the password is all lowercase, stay in school.
I'm good. Thank you.
No space.
Hey, school.
Yeah, who came up with that?
It's that, I think. And that's love you. Let's go on to stuff.
Hey, look. Thank you.
We are all good.
You know what? I actually got the most recent one that he sent me, so I can pull it up on the TV probably.
VA's at 1350 Main Street. This would be, yeah.
He's from GCA, and then Danny Cheese also had on them. I'm
I was asking what to do. In your outlook mobile app.
you shouldn't have to do it yet because it's not through.
It's through our
Oh, I see.
VPN.
If it's easier, I can throw it. I threw it up on the TV. I got the one from 5 earlier today. Just had like the map and.
And I have my source. So,
Oh Lord, it's hard. I know.
all right, if you can do that, then
Yes.
that works.
What I typically do is like this plan and we go from there, but if you want to show anything else, just tell me. I'll move over to it.
All right, cool. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Lord with GZA Geoenvironmental out of Springfield. I'm also here with my colleague Dan Nitchie. He's available online here, representing Mr. Greg Haas of Haas Home Products, the applicant and owner of 65 Lutfield Street. Does everyone know kind of where that is in town? If you've gone past it recently, if you can make out where the house is, it's pretty well overgrown. So the proposed project is a redevelopment project. And resources, wetland resources that we have here, we have a BVW along the edge there. And then there's a meander scar of the Manhan River. So that projects a 200-foot riverfront onto the property. And there's also bordering land subject to flooding. The property was surveyed by Holmgren here in town, Emily Holmgren, and they picked up the R7 disc that's down on the Manhan Bridge. And that projects from the old firm maps, the flood elevation is 123 feet. So that's the 100-year flood line. So BLSF comes around the 123 elevation, comes around, just kisses the back portion of this lot here. This really is the only kind of flat area here above the floodplain. And then it drops off to the adjacent BVW. And a good portion of this property is wetland there. So the applicant, what he's proposing is he has a special permit to demolish, which he thinks he may have to do, is demolish and build the house on the existing footprint, the existing foundation. He's going to remove, so that's in Riverfront. So I guess I can back up a little bit. This is, there's been some changes. Greg took a look and made some changes from our preliminary filing. This was the old limit of work here, but now he wants to extend that out a little bit. So that's in the blue. So you're following me here. He proposes to demolish this shed in the back. It does have a brick foundation. I'm not sure how deep that goes. I think it might be just fairly like on grade, set into the ground, not very far. Remove that completely with the foundation. He plans on demolishing this garage, which is in disrepair. It has a slab on grade concrete foundation. He kind of wants to leave that in place. So after these two are removed, there's actually a net benefit of flood storage on the property of 330 square feet.
So those won't be filled.
Excuse me?
The foundation won't be filled. I mean, when you take the bricks out, there'll be a hole in the ground, right?
Yeah, so the intent is to, after that's all done, this shed here is going to be removed outside of Riverfront. This is just kind of freestanding. So that's going to get removed out of Riverfront. He plans on building a 20 by 20 carport. And in order to do that, he's going to remove a portion of asphalt driveway here in the corner and then, just have a kind of a crushed stone gravel kind of driveway, so that'll allow for some infiltration. So, and after that, he wants to restore the area that the house was built circa 1890, so been around a while. So he just wants to reestablish the yard area within the limit of work. And in order to do that, do you mind pulling up the photos?
Not at all. I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom. I think that's where they're at in this form.
Just to give you guys an idea of what our applicants, what the current conditions are here at the property.
While that's happening, can I ask a curiosity?
Sure.
Yeah. Since some of this is land subject to flooding, how much of it actually flooded in last month's flood event? Okay.
Yeah, that was my question too, is whether that basement of the old house is being flooded
No
out.
water in the basement.
It was amazing. The manhand was up.
Yeah.
Even that BVW in the back.
Right.
You could tell that received some of that additional flood water, and I could see the staining, because I was there maybe a couple days after all that rain.
Yeah.
And you could actually see the sediment, deposition on some of the skunk cabbage leaves and all that,
Yeah.
so, but it never came up.
Wow.
Yeah,
Fortunate.
so, yeah. All right, so this is a view of one of the wetlands in the rear of the property.
Yeah, let's see, what do you think? There were some that have the house. Oh, it's taking a minute to load. It's kind of looking from below. That's like, huh?
So it's kind of a jungle out there.
These ones kind of show
Yeah, that's-
around the house.
Yeah, so this is the existing garage. As you can tell, the roof's collapsing in, right? The structure's in total disrepair. It's getting overgrown. A lot of the plants on this property are invasive. A lot of oriental bittersweet, Russian olive, Italian honeysuckle, mugwort, just to name a few. There's the front view of the garage. You can see it here.
How long has that been in disrepair?
I couldn't tell you, ma'am. Those things grow pretty quickly, and you can tell there was a difference between the existing forest and, as you walk onto the property.
I mean, I moved there like 5 years ago, and I think that's where.
Front of the house, do we have that?
Yes, I probably, let's see. That's a,
So these are you can stop. So this is one of the sheds that will be removed with the brick foundation. This is the shed that will be removed. These both are in riverfront right now. So that will that's 360 square feet of reclaimed riverfront.
You said one of them, you wanted to leave the concrete slab.
So that will be the garage. That one's outside of riverfront, but a portion of it's in BLSF. So the standing structure could potentially displace floodwater. So removing that vertical structure allows for floodwaters to come up and fill that void.
But I thought you said you wanted to leave the slab.
The concrete slab on
Yeah,
grade, so
under the
that's just
garage.
on the ground.
But there's a shed.
the garage portion is outside of the riverfront area, so he's not claiming that to be a benefit to the riverfront area, removing it. They're not seeing the need to remove the slab in that the benefit of removing the garage is increasing the flood storage.
So
So
it's okay to leave the concrete.
it's up for you guys to decide, but typically the goal within borderline subject to flooding is to have no net loss of flood storage. So right now that building is taking up space that could hold water, and so if you remove it, it would just be on grade with what the rest of the surrounding land is, if that makes sense.
So what I was asking earlier is where the shed that you're gonna demolish, where you take out that brick foundation, then there's just a hole in the ground. What, does it get filled in with anything, or? is it
So I
just-
want to think of it as like a typical foundation where it goes into the ground. What would you say? Maybe 6 inches? He doesn't quite know. But it doesn't have like a basement or anything
Crawl
like that.
space.
Yeah, no, it's just like a kind of slab on grade brick foundation that they built. So I would assume he wants to return this to yard space,
Yeah.
so maybe bring in some fresh loam and just seed it. So that's the ultimate goal here, is to kind of reclaim this area from all the invasives and restore it to lawn to precondition of August 1997. So again, like I said, there is a total net benefit of 330 square feet in BLSF. And then the removal of this structure and moving this outside of riverfront, it's 360 square feet of reclaimed riverfront area.
So there's invasive removal proposed. What kind of removal method are you planning on doing?
So typically it would be probably like a hand cut and dab.
Mhm.
Just try to control that over time for the life of the order. So what's that, 3 years?
Yep.
And that is closer to the riverfront and the BLSF, so that would also have a benefit
Yeah,
to the riverfront.
if I can go back to the plan, I can show where that area is.
We could probably include an in perpetuity condition to allow for the removal of invasives using, application of herbicides and hand cutting methods or
I
whatever.
mean, you can tell by the pictures. I mean, the bittersweet is really prolific, as we know everywhere, right? So, so this is actually, it was inside the original proposed work area. So, my only concern is it does get pretty steep here, but I think we still have a pretty flat area here. And, I think it could be worked there.
Is there an intermittent stream right there?
So there is an intermittent stream that comes through the DVW and comes back towards underneath this driveway towards the Manhan.
We didn't map that out where it was.
The whole area is flooded, but it wasn't on any USGS maps. It wasn't on the stream stats maps. So according to the regulations, we had to do a watershed calculation, and I do have that figure on there
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
you did, so you did the stream statistics, and the data was collected to determine if that stream was intermittent or perennial. And it sounds like you found that it was intermittent.
It was intermittent.
And so as a result, the stream itself would have a 100-foot buffer zone, but it's in amongst this bordering vegetated wetland all around it. So the 100-foot buffer zone would start at the edge of the BBW, which goes farther into the property, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's what I was looking at.
Yes, yep. So that goes right here, and they've mapped that these, so if this is an intermittent stream,
Mhm.
you would have a 100-foot buffer zone, but
Right.
this is all part of it too. So the 100 buffer zone should go from here out.
Yeah,
And that seems to
From the
be,
BVW.
yes, from the BBW.
so it
So
looks like that stream goes right behind the shed. I mean,
it likely does. It
Yeah.
isn't represented on the map, the stream, it sounds like.
I mean, it was really flooded. It comes out and it goes underneath this easement of the driveway here, back towards the Manhan.
Yeah.
So that might be something where it allowed for that flood water to come up to allow some of that relief from the river to come back into these backwater wetlands there to absorb some of that flooding when it happens.
but did you mark the buffer zone for the intermittent stream, or we, have that?
So like Cassie was saying, if the intermittent stream is here, the 100-foot buffer would only come out to here. So you take the furthest away, which is the BBW line, which is a 100-foot buffer.
And
So
you
you're actually getting more buffer zone with the BBW than you would with the.
Good.
Okay, and so the existing driveway, it's gonna stay the same, same dimensions, but it's gonna be spruced up with more crushed stone or,
So Yep, the existing driveway is gonna stay here, but it's this area here where the carport's gonna go.
Yep,
That asphalt's gonna be removed,
that gets removed.
and there's gonna be a base, within the footprint of the carport. So
Okay.
it's just gonna be a 20 by 20 crushed gravel underneath the carport. It's gonna be
I see.
open. Is that gonna be an open carport, right? Well, it's gonna be
Footing.
open to the air, and, with the crushed stone, that will allow some infiltration.
I get it. So it'll stay an existing paved driveway to its existing dimensions and all that sort of thing.
So yeah, there's no expansion of degraded area within riverfront or buffer zone.
And then,
The crushed stone is, I don't know, is that okay to have red, bordering and subject to flooding?
it sounds like it's a base for a concrete, or it's a base for.
Is it just gonna be stone, Greg, or underneath the carport?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And
So,
that will be outside of BLSF. BLSF, ends right over here. So actually the garage and the concrete slab kind of extends beyond the BLSF. So he's not gonna be doing any work in the BLSF except removing that old garage.
Well, plus it's an improvement anyway, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going from asphalt to crushed stone, so it's
portion of
actually more pervious than what's there now.
It'll allow for greater infiltration.
Well, my concern was having the crushed stone migrate.
Is there something you could
If
do,
it
guys,
is,
to build like kind of like a little
Perimeter.
perimeter around that, or
Bordering.
2x8s or
Eyes,
something?
Yeah.
Landscape ties.
and it's under a roof, and it's got some
Reduction.
It's got protection, and it's not very close to the wetlands, I don't think.
So in prior to work, obviously we're gonna have to establish EMS controls along this perimeter work with silt fence and or like a straw wattle, just to protect the surrounding resources.
And is the driveway that's there, is it gravel or is it paved asphalt?
It's asphalt. And I think there's more under there.
Yeah.
It's overgrown with vines at this
Yeah.
point, so, but I believe the asphalt goes all the way to the garage door and further behind the house.
So you won't know until you start clearing everything away.
Right. I probed with a little probe and I hit a hard surface, so I'm pretty certain it's there.
And then the invasives you would, after you cut, they stay up, get removed or leave them on the side?
Typically, when you're cutting, as long as you can sever the life force from the roots to the foliage, usually that will, dry up and fall off, and allow for, more sunlight to penetrate into the trees and the understory.
Yeah, I was just asking if you would remove the foliage after it was cut, the cut foliage, or if it would get
Yeah, in
left on site.
this main area to reestablish the lawn, that would have to be removed, wouldn't it, Greg?
Yeah.
So he is planning to remove that area, and with the disposal, I think you'd have to find a good place a place that accepts that kind of material for disposal. But in this area here, I don't know, I think just the cut and dab and let it just die out and let kind of let nature take care of it, to grade it, and
Haven't we had conditions on that?
So you're GZA, you're not the ones that are gonna be doing the invasive.
man. But we can certainly assist Greg and give him some advice when it comes time for that.
You're gonna do it all by yourself.
He's been doing a lot of the work by himself.
I've been doing a lot, but that's more than I get to myself. Yeah, I would plan to hire someone else for it to do.
A licensed applicator.
Yeah.
I don't have an applicator's license, so I won't be able to do that.
Okay.
And then there's
Yeah, more
stuff
questions.
about the sewer pipe and the right-of-way driveway. I thought I read something in your report about that the property next door has a right-of-way driveway that goes across the corner of the property that has a sewer pipe or a pipe that connects.
Well, yes, there is an easement, and I believe there is a sewer easement somewhere on, I think it's this right here, actually.
It says,
But our work is not gonna be near that at all.
it says together with the right to lay, maintain, and keep and repair the sewer pipe and water pipe across the land of 65 Lovefield Street. But maybe that's just the way the easement's written.
So yes, that came from the surveyor, so that has to be something in the deed, I would presume, for that
The
portion of
Lucas
land.
map, yeah.
Oh, okay. You're, okay.
There's a lot of interesting information on here, but it doesn't really pertain to
Anything that they're doing.
it seems like. Yep.
I do have one more question.
Mhm.
That's good. Have you considered a wildlife habitat assessment for the area?
For the,
Because it's riverfront and BVW.
I don't believe we are required by the regulations to do that, because we're not doing anything within the 10-year flood boundary. The amount of disturbance in BLSF, I don't think triggers wildlife habitat assessment. Dan, would you want to speak to that at all? Do you have any information?
Yeah, I mean, hi, everyone. The property is a residential property. The yard, which is growing back in, but the yard that's there really doesn't provide much wildlife habitat. So what kind of wildlife habitat assessment would you do? We're putting a yard back. We're putting a lawn back. I don't really see a reason to be, if this was new construction, that'd be a very different story. But because we're restoring a residential piece of property back to its original, we're really not affecting an untouched property. So I guess that's my opinion. Is it's already developed. What real wildlife habitat value does it have?
Well, probably to the raccoons living in the house here about.
Well, yeah, there you go. That's a good point.
In the report, it was saying it was wildlife habitat values. So I was assuming because it is riverfront, there must be some sort of a threshold. No one's lived in the house for however long, so, the values might have changed. So I didn't know if that's why you would consider filling out an Appendix A for the area of riverfront or the BVW.
Well, we're not in the BVW, the riverfront potentially. Bordering, just so you're clear, bordering land subject to flooding, if you have a yard, lawn, maintained area in bordering land subject to flooding, that portion of the regulation says there is no wildlife habitat value. Now, a lot of where we're working is not in BLS, but BLSF, bordering land subject to flooding. I'm just giving you a context that the regulations essentially kicks out these projects or these properties that are already developed because they've been developed. So there really has very little. Now, granted, wildlife are using the property, there's no question, but wildlife habitat assessments are typically for properties that are going to be developed versus a property that's already developed.
I did have a raccoon come visit.
I sure did.
Plenty of mice.
But you
Okay.
thought you read somewhere in there.
I thought I read it in the report that, I'm not sure where, it did say certain areas you had checked off, yes. And one of them said wildlife habitat values.
I don't recall that, but
That's the performance standard of the riverfront. Actually, it's a performance standard, or not a performance standard, but it's a sort of a description of most resource areas that it has wildlife habitat value. It doesn't mean that it's always the same kind of value, because sites that are not developed theoretically should have better wildlife habitat than a site that's developed. I guess that's the commission's call. If you wanted us to do that, we could do that. But I think the answer is going to be it's a residential piece of property and there's no
Well, it says a small portion of the site along the southeastern property boundary is within a priority habitat for rare and endangered species, an estimated habitat of rare wildlife, but no work is proposed within this portion of the site.
That's correct.
You're muted. You're
Oh,
muted,
sorry.
Dan.
I apologize. Yeah, the what you just described is in the corner over by Lovefield Way, that right of way you were just describing. It barely comes into the property. It's for specific species associated with the Manhan River, not upland species on the site we're at.
Right, no, I was talking about the wildlife habitat values.
Yeah, you're talking,
Separate.
so Commissioner Carr, you were talking about priority habitat identified by Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. They've confirmed that they're not doing any work that's in that area. And then Commissioner August is talking about, there are certain thresholds in the act that allow the commission to request a wildlife habitat assessment. And it sounds like, I don't know if they're meeting those thresholds or they're below those thresolds. I can't remember. We listed up here probably, in these tables.
So I think somewhere in the narrative, we discussed that all the plants that are there don't have any value. I can't recall which section in there, but since there are so many invasive, maybe that was it?
Done.
Yeah, we're talking that the removal of these invasives is probably going to be good for the habitat. I don't recall seeing anything else.
And,
No.
and what I was reading was from the resource areas affected.
Right, so you were reading that portion that talks about that on the site there is priority habitat. And they were describing that they do not anticipate impacts to it,
Right.
but for that specific type of thing. So, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I guess it sounds like Commissioner August is concerned about whether or not a wildlife habitat assessment should be conducted. I don't know if the rest of the commission has any feelings about that or.
Yeah, I guess my personal opinion is that it's not necessary. The site this is a redevelopment project. The site has been developed before. It's actually a nice parcel with a lot of different, habitat potential is not being touched back where the BBW is. In terms of the context of that and all the resources around the Manhan River and everything like that, it shouldn't have significant impact, I don't think.
And I think to your point as well, with the BVW and the DAD are a little like hot upland that I saw. So that does give good matrix for any animals that are migrating through there to utilize that BVW to get to the Manhan and any of those matrices that are associated with it.
I was just trying to find what I thought you might have been referring to.
All right. Are there any other commissioner questions or comments?
The only thing I realized is that we got the DEP comments with that. You
Oh,
probably
right,
haven't
the
seen,
DEP
just
comments.
because
I was going to
it's
ask
been
about public comments, but I
Oh, yeah,
can
we could do that too.
comments.
That's what you guys want.
Doesn't matter which one first.
Just out of curiosity, are you gonna live there or have a business there since it's possible?
Oh, no. There's some outside hope that my daughter might move there in a year, but she's in California. So we're happy where we are in Florence. So, yeah, we would restore it and put it on the market.
Oh, to flip it,
Unless-
okay, got it.
And Hispanics in a butter, so.
Tuscany Conservation Trust?
Yeah, and so is Mass Audubon.
So if there's any concerns, I'm sure we'll hear
Hear
something.
about it from Garrett.
Yeah, I know there's some folks here in the public, it looks like, I don't know if Garrett and Marty are still here. They are, and we can open up to the,
Earlier.
yeah, we can open it up to public comment whenever you guys are ready. And then the last piece that I would suggest is doing the DEP comments, which I got pulled up. So whatever order you guys want to do things in, we can do it.
Doesn't matter. How about DP comments?
Okay, all right, I do have it pulled up, so we'll come back to public comments. So, let's see, 5 comments here. First one was regarding the bordering land subject to flooding elevation as noted as using the NGVD 29 datum. Please include a copy of the flood insurance study profile data for this location to the Conservation Commission. The flood maps are used in conjunction with the profile data to arrive at the correct floodplain elevation.
Which is exactly what Emily Holmberg did. That's how she came up with those the number for the 123 elevation.
I think there is a note in the plan that she did use that.
So she identified the source, Pat, of what came up with the 123 elevation.
Elevation of the 10-year and 100-year boundaries are based on the flood profile for Manhan River Panel 03P, the flood insurance study for the town of Easthampton, Massachusetts, Hampshire County, dated February 1979. Contour lines representing the flood boundaries are based on the ground survey conducted by this office between July 21st and the 2020 August 2nd, 2023. Benchmark elevation 127.8, NGVD 29. At the RM7 disc, like I alluded to before, that's on the Manhan River. So that's where they pick up that elevation and base the rest of the floodplain elevation off of that. So the professional surveyor, I believe that's satisfied.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Comment. The RFA summary, riverfront area summary sheet is not correct. The compliance with 310 CMR 10.585 is based on new work area, not new degraded area. The summary sheet needs to be updated.
So the latest version that I emailed to you and the paper copies have been updated to satisfy 1058.5 E, F, and G, I believe. So we get a 1-to-1 for the 360 square feet. And then with the new proposed 1250 for invasive species removal, no, it's should be table 2.
Yeah, I can share
Or
this.
table 4.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I have the latest version that you sent me earlier today, so let me just scroll down it.
Dan, do you want to speak to this while I'm pulling somebody's notes up at all?
For item 2,
Yes, sir.
yeah, so Pat and I worked on the revising the summary. Essentially what's going on here is because we have greater than 10% degraded or work on the site, not just degraded, but work on the site, anything over 10% we owe mitigation for. So the project is proposing about 11.1%. There's 2.6% on the site currently. And under the law, we're allowed to go over the 10% only on a redevelopment project, and again, only if we have the correct mitigation for that. If you were to work up to 10%, you don't owe any mitigation, but we're over the 10%, 11.1, so 1.1% or around 747 square feet over the 10%. So we're obligated to provide mitigation. Under 1058.5F is for a 1-to-1 mitigation for degraded riverfront. So the shelter or the shed that we're removing from the riverfront is that action. We're removing degraded riverfront. Degraded is impervious. So by removing that out of the riverfront area, that qualifies as a 1-to-1 restoration. But that number doesn't satisfy the total restoration that's required. So 320, as Pat mentioned, 320 square feet does satisfy or partially satisfies the 1-to-1 requirement. And the remaining number, which Pat would have to give you that number, I don't know off the top of my head, but the remaining square footage needs to be satisfied primarily on the property. And because we're not removing other degraded, we have to provide mitigation at a 2-to-1 ratio. That's under 1058.5G. That's for on-site, for non-degraded areas. If you're restoring, let's say you had a lawn, and I'm going to give up my lawn and I'm going to put trees and shrubs in there, and I'm never going to touch it again. That's a disturbed riverfront. It's not degraded because again, degraded means impervious. And because we're going to give up the disturbed area, we have to give that back at a 2-to-1 ratio because we're getting less benefit than removing impervious. You can also do that off-site, 2-to-1, but we're doing the on-site. So we owe the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the Wetlands Protection Act, we owe a 2-to-1 restoration for the remaining square footage. And we're doing that through invasive species management, which is one of the options that it's allowed in the regulations for riverfront improvement. The net improvement or mitigation that we're doing is in excess, not grossly, but it's in excess of the requirement of 1058.5F and 1058.5G. That's the 1-to-1 and 2-to-1. In the past, and I think even fairly recently, the department's stance on this is if you provide more mitigation than you're obligated, the extra mitigation applies towards 1058.5A, the very first standard for redevelopment, which basically says you have to make the riverfront better than you found it. So by doing mitigation over and above what's required, the over and above is allowed to be a support for 1058.5A, making the riverfront better because we're removing more than what we're obligated to. So that's how it's broken down. If you could slide up, Cassie, there's a table 2 that gives it more numerically what I just described. So here's the table. You start with your total riverfront. You describe how much degraded is already there, 1820 square feet. That equals 2.6% of the riverfront on the property. Then we talk about the proposed work. Proposed work is 5770. That includes expanding the lawn, all that type of work, removing the invasives that are close to the building, and that equals 8.5%. So if you count the two together, that's 11.1%. Then, because we're over 10, we now look at mitigation options. The 58.5F for 1-to-1 and 58.5G for 2-to-1. We've subtracted the 320 square feet at the 1-to-1, and then we've left with the remainder. And at a 2-to-1 mitigation, we owe 1,494 square feet. We're offering 1,610 square feet as mitigation in the form of invasive species control all around the house and property, not expanding it beyond the old lawn area, but basically, to try to satisfy the 1,494. So the additional plus or minus 100 and something, 116 square feet, that's over and above the minimum requirement. So that could apply towards our 58.5A, make the riverfront better. So that table summarizes everything. This is revised from what Mark Stinson first saw. So this is a revision to fully encompass the compliance with 1058, the riverfront regulations. The other table Cassie was showing, which breaks down each of the performance standards, 58.5A, B, C, D, gives an individual breakdown for each component of the performance standards for redevelopment. And we can slide down. I don't know if you want me to talk about each one or Pat can talk about those. We'd be happy to, but I think it's pretty straightforward that we're complying with everything that's required for working within a riverfront area.
Dan, do you know, the mitigation for the invasive species is on the property that wasn't there previously when the house was maintained, right?
Some of the invasives we're removing are actually outside of the lawn area. So it's addition, but if we don't go to the edge of the old lawn, which we're not proposing to on the south side of the house, couldn't we use that area we're removing invasives, so it's still removing invasives. I think that's it. Go ahead.
Property, right next to the house on the south side?
I think if you show the plan, I think the limit of work is less than the original lawn.
Right, so.
Because because the owner doesn't feel like he doesn't need to clear more. He wants to clear just the minimum around the structure. But between the dash line for the limit of work and what looks to be a proposed limit of, aren't we stopping at the blue line? Oh yeah, the blue line was stopping at. The red line was what? Is that the old limit of the lawn, Pat?
So we had to calculate the square footage of how much of this area within the riverfront and the proposed limit of work that's the proposed work is clearing out all the invasives in here. Even though we're doing that, we have to consider that as new work within riverfront. So even though doing that makes it better, we have to consider it work. So that's where some of that, I think 5,700 square foot is in here to return this back to lawn area.
But I don't think that's the commission member's question. Could the commission member repeat the question so we make sure we get the right answer?
I was just wondering, all the invasives is on the property. At one point, years ago, say it was all cleared. So because no one maintained the property, the invasives crept in all over the property that you now have to remove because you want to fix the property back to its original, make it better.
So you're questioning whether they can use that as.
Yeah, because,
compensatory.
I mean, I would say it would be in addition to that.
Well, so the limit of work is only to here. So this is going to be an addition. This is the extra 1,250 square feet of invasive removal that the applicant's willing to use to do as mitigation. So it's not part of the work.
Right. We're not double dipping and taking credit for making the old lawn and removing the invasive species within that lawn. We are removing invasive species from an area we are not making a lawn in. So it's an area that was, but I don't know how much of that was actually lawn. I don't know what the dimension was for the lawn. I think visually standing out there was about 25 feet off the south end of the house. But that we are removing invasives that are not in an area that's being lawn. So we should be able to take credit for that.
And did I hear correctly that part of the reason that you even need to come up with compensatory is because the removal of the invasive species is considered part of the work that you're doing in a riverfront area? Did I hear that correctly, or did I misunderstand that?
Well, it's not compensatory storage. It's mitigation. That may be the word you were looking for. It's compensatory storage is relative to floodplain, and this isn't in floodplain what we're talking about. The removal number 5770 includes removing some invasive species, or a lot, because there's a lot there, around the house to restore the lawn up to the blue dashed or dot dash line. The outside of that, we're not proposing to do anything except remove the invasives on that south side. So that most of that probably wasn't lawn in the past. So we're improving the property by expanding the invasive species removal area. And we're taking no credit for any of the invasive species removal around the building because that's our lawn. So we don't get credit for that. That's work. We have to do credit would be for outside of your work area.
Yeah, I'm good now. I think the map I had didn't show that red.
You might have had the older
Okay.
version.
All right. Thank you.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Do you guys want the comment letter or comment?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll go back to it. Sorry. Let's see here. I believe we're on comment number 3. Please note that the resource areas listed are presumed to protect all the interests of the act noted in the preambles, not just a certain number noted in the narrative.
That's a comment that Mark seems to be making in recent months. I understand what he says. I mean, in the preamble, it says these are all the potential interest of the resource area, in this case, riverfront area. We're identifying what we believe is in this portion of the riverfront area on the property. In between all of us, it's moot, because you could, on your order of conditions, you could check off every interest, and that would be the answer. It doesn't affect what we're proposing or what we're allowed to do, whether we check off all the interest or just pick out certain ones. We're just saying we feel that it satisfies, it qualifies for certain interest. If DEP wants to take the stance that all of the interests that are in the preamble are applicable, then okay, that's fine. It doesn't affect the work. It doesn't change a performance standard. It doesn't change a percentage that we're allowed to do. It doesn't change mitigation. So, I mean, he can say it if he'd like, but it doesn't change anything. Yeah, so it's more of a statement than a comment.
It has implications for like when I fill out the order, the actual order, check off what is likely there, what interests are likely related. And I typically check them all off except for shellfish and just because it seems like that's always been the standard, and it seems like, well, there might be something there. So I don't know.
But it doesn't change what someone proposes to do, what mitigation's required. So it's an academic exercise. So that's why I'm saying it's a statement. It's really not a comment. Like a comment means we're supposed to respond to it. We don't need to respond to this.
What's the next comment?
Yeah, what's the next one?
Okay, number 4. The commission should note the project has changed and there is an additional fee required as noted in the applicant's representative email on August 28, 2023. The new NOI in narrative is dated as of the same date. And it looks like you have them there, right?
Yeah.
That's
So I give you the one for city, right?
perfect. Yeah, and I already received
That'll
the
go to the
original fee
lockbox.
based off of the original application. And then this is in addition to that, it sounds like.
Correct.
This doesn't void the old check. I'm going to process them together. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
State already passed.
Okay, next, anything else from them?
There's one more. The commission should review compliance with 310 CMR 10.585, part 5. And it looks like that relates to all those subsections we were talking about previously, potentially.
2, so I believe we addressed that through demonstration of or updated the tables and narrative in the work plan.
Okay, so I think we've done that.
Okay. Anybody? Okay. If the commission's having any questions related to these DEP comments, previously someone mentioned they might want to do, open up for public comment, and then the last piece would be looking at conditions if the commission feels like they're ready to do that. So.
Yep, public comments.
Okay, so folks, if anybody online has a comment they'd like to make, you can use the raise hand function. That will indicate to me that you have a comment you want to make, and then I'll give you the permissions to do that. The raise hand button is down at the bottom of your screen there to the left of the red hang up button. And I should note I haven't received any written comments. Addition.
You have not received.
I have not. Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Not seeing, not hearing any comments.
No, sir.
Going once. Right, hearing no comments, should we discuss conditions?
One that I'd like to note is typically, again, the reporting requirement. Sounds like typically that the commission still wants to stick with that. It's every week during construction, and then after every 0.25 inch rain event as well. I don't know if this project would require a SWIP. Usually do it in accordance with the SWIP, but if there's not a SWIP, it just generally needs to show the condition of the erosion controls and be completed by a person who's like, is the appropriate person.
Yeah, there's not an acre of earth disturbance happening on the property, so it wouldn't comply with an EPA requirement for a construction general permit, which typically triggers the SWIP.
Gotcha.
Do we have a specific detail or narrative item for like erosion perimeter controls to be used or anything?
In the narrative, it states either silt fence and or straw wattle, depending on what the commission prefers around the proposed limit of work. So everything on that blue line that was shown on the site plan would be is the proposed limit of work. So that's where the ENS controls would be established.
Yeah, so in the past, you can require a type of control that you want there, or one of the typical pre-construction conditions is to have a detail of what that is going to be. Usually it's like, you're going to use just silt fencing, or you're going to use just a straw wattle. It sounds like maybe silt fencing would be appropriate, at least here, I don't know. But, or you guys can say, make a determination now, what kind of controls you want there, for sure, as a minimum.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, at the initiation of construction, having the applicant provide a detail for the measure to be used.
Would it be okay once you get all that together, take photos, or have Kathy come out and take a look?
That's a typical pre-construction requirement,
Okay.
is to do a kind of on-site meeting. So that's one of the things that I would check, is that the erosion controls are in place as agreed upon on the plan.
Okay,
So
cool.
Yep, I'd like to add a condition in perpetuity to allow the use of, to allow invasive removal within the proposed invasive removal area, as well as the rest of the limit of work using, using hand methods with a spot herbicide treatment. But I'd also like a condition that the more detail be provided on the herbicide to be used, and the
Pre-con.
person doing the application of the pre-construction meeting.
And you want to add the in perpetuity because you're hoping that the employees keep doing it.
Right. Yeah.
So it sounds like to me, in perpetuity condition allowing you to keep doing non-invasive work in that area and then everywhere else in the limit of work. And then also a pre-construction requirement, essentially for an invasive species removal plan detailing what the methods are going to be used. And so basically all this pre-con stuff is just something when you're ready to start, you submit to me. And then sometimes I review it with the commission. Sometimes if it just checks the box, then it's good to go. That's something that y'all might want to review. So it's just like another detail when you're ready to start.
What and who?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I have more if unless someone else has something. The other one that I was going to question the commission was interested in doing, it's just something that typically the commission has been requiring recently, but it does get interesting for these smaller projects, is requiring monumentation on site. What the commission's been requiring thus far is, as a pre-construction requirement, is a monumentation plan of basically something showing where the resource areas are and like the limit of lawn, essentially, typically, of like, so that there isn't encroachment over time into the future by new owners. The commission hasn't previously required what that monumentation is, just that you submit a plan pre-con to show us what you want to do, and then the commission.
Monumentation is,
It could be, it's been a range of things. Sometimes it's like a stake that has a sign on it that says like protected area or something like that. Sometimes people want to put boulders as being like a marker that at a certain interval, so that people won't go past, or it's very clear if there's a demarcation. People have done birdhouses. I don't know, but it's really up. I don't know if the commission at this time has a preference, but in the past it's been kind of propose something. The commission approves it.
Yeah, I guess the monumentation designated the limit of disturbance, limit of lawn within riverfront area and buffer zone would be good, with the method of monumentation to be proposed by the applicant, something permanent.
Okay. The next one was for when you actually go to do the clearing for the limit of lawn. In the past, the commission has requested that if there's certain trees over a DBH that are like right on the line, you bark those, and we do the pre-con meeting on site, check everything else out there. We make a determination of like, can you bump the limit of work slightly just to save those bigger trees? I don't know if this is a big enough property that makes sense to do in this instance, but something that the commission has required in the past. It's in our boilerplate. Want to know if you still wanted that to be.
It sounds like there's only 6 trees so far. You're planning on up and down. Are they any of them near the limit of work?
So a lot of those trees are growing up near the house, so I would consider those hazard trees to the structure.
But they're not near the edge of the limit of work.
They're within the limit of work.
Yeah, most of them are close to the house. And then
Right.
I don't know if you even know along the limit of work, if there's any kind of bigger trees that might,
You did indicate that you wanted to keep some of those larger red maples, the white pines, but around the house is really, the trees are like growing over or into the house.
I don't think there's any, what you're describing.
yeah, no, yeah, I don't even know if there would be. So this is the thing, like, we've done bigger lots where you don't know what's exactly along the limit of work, and it seems inconsequential, essentially, to the big project, if you just bump it a little to save a bigger tree that happens to be right on the line, instead of cutting it down.
Those big pine trees by the garage.
Yeah.
They're on the limit of work.
Okay.
We want to keep them.
Yeah, there's that nice big red maple there too.
There's
I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt to have the condition in there, but it sounds like they've already submitted it, unless they change the signs.
Okay, I'll leave it then if it seems like amenable to everybody.
Yep.
Okay.
Are we, clearing any trees that are in danger to the house within the area of work?
So a lot of those are composed of smaller saplings and some like staghorn sumac, and a lot of it's really like the Tyrian honeysuckle and the Russian olive.
Right.
Those
Based
kind
on,
of woody, shrubby, space in the plants.
Do we have to discuss pesticides?
Okay, certainly. Yep. Well, typically that we have a in perpetuity condition at the end that says, kind of saying that pesticides and herbicides can't be used within the 100-foot buffer zone. You could change it to include RFA, you could, I don't know, however you guys want to do that.
It's not kind of saying the opposite to allow treatment of removal of invasives.
But I think the WPA does allow for herbicide applications, correct, Ann? As long as it's in, applied in accordance with the manufacturer, the Department of Food and Agriculture. Or something about that.
Yeah, basically you follow the instructions on the back of the jar, exactly. It does allow it.
are you planning on using any other herbicides besides the spot application to the cutting of the invasives?
But, you know, if I sell it in a year, I don't know. It might-
So pesticides and herbicides are considered the same.
No, pesticides would be something that would kill
The grass?
insect or rodent, a pest. The herbicides would be more used for vegetation control, herbaceous cover.
So should we say it for future owners? Since you might be flipping it in a year?
Yeah, we have added in perpetuity conditions to
In
not,
perpetuity carries with the property, right?
yeah, to not allow the use of
Actually-
pesticides.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying we have had in perpetuity conditions to allow the use, to prohibit the use of pesticides. So we ought to do that, I guess,
Yes.
within riverfront area buffer zone.
But I'll make sure that doesn't conflict with the new order, the new perpetuity one about
Right.
maybe invasive.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Please.
I'm trying to think there are others that we typically include that can be, people typically have questions in the future about it. That's all I have. I can also think of anything particular to this project.
Yeah, if there's any, I'm sure it's a standard, but if there's any change in the, project, you may need to, reissue permit or whatever, provide the new permit. Yeah, there's a bazillion standard conditions in there that cover all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm satisfied. I'm good. Do we have a motion?
Someone can make motion that we should.
So I'll move that we issue a, what's the phrase word I need? Order of conditions, thank you, as we've discussed.
Okay.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Carr?
Aye.
Commissioner August?
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Commissioner Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you all for your time.
you, I have 21 days to write an issue, but I tried to do it as early as I can. I can do that stuff. And then after that, to issue the 10-day appeal period for DEP, but I know that's some comments.
I have no idea.
And then
spring Christmas cake.
the next thing I would ask is if the commission would consider taking item 6E for the Lathrop Road out of agenda order. Because it's the next week, still something for that one. So,
All right, motion to take item 6E out of order.
Okay.
no one
I
needs to.
can't make a motion.
Yeah. You want a motion it, Mike?
Thank you for your time today.
Yeah.
To take 60 out of order.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Carr?
Aye.
Commissioner August?
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks? Aye. Commissioner Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of the week, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Awesome. Brian, are you here for this item?
Yep, I'm still here.
If I can, I'll give an update. Anything else? So,
Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's see. So I left the decided site visit on August 22nd. So where we left off, there's the three pieces, right? Sediment removal, slope restoration, and stream impact mitigation, or remediation, I should say. Sediment removal was considered to be complete. Those two removal exercises, then the slope restoration, phase of iteration, the commission did not approve it, they redone it. I went on August 22nd, the morning that they started their work, I saw the construction of the first lift, and then returned at the end of the day, and also and then saw it seemed to be completed, and Ryan also provided some additional pictures, which I can show here in a second. And then, I don't know, Ryan, do you want to describe where the current condition and where it's at and what's going on up there?
Sure. So after Cassie had left that day when they were installing the first lift or two, I was there for the remainder of the day overseeing installation. I'll try and bring up some pictures.
There you go.
So the existing lifts or the first attempt, that was all removed. The contractor had ordered and picked up heavier Corey blanket fabric so that the lifts could be more pronounced and a little more durable and taut as compared to before. So those were utilized and everything was done per the detail. The blanket was laid out, inlaid with about a foot of soil, and then the fabric was rolled over top of that, stapled in place, and then seated and then rolled over top, stapled in place. Then 3 inches or so of loam in between the layers, and then the process just kept repeating. They used wooden boards and stakes to kind of build a form to keep things in place as they were going. That seemed to work really well. Just going to scan through the pictures here.
That looks way better.
Yeah, way better.
Yep.
Much.
And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but the boards are to be removed, is that?
Correct. Yes. So we kept them in place until the plantings were installed. So this was the first day. The next day they came back and put in the plantings. And we thought keeping the forms in place until the plantings were in was helpful because they would be walking all over them and things. So, and I don't have any pictures with me right now of the plantings installed. They're on my work camera. I never uploaded them, but the plantings have been installed per the plan. Carlos gave me the invoice sheet, which I think I forwarded to Cassie from New England wetland plans and it matches what was on our restoration plan.
Yeah, so just if I can, a note on that. So the last meeting, when the commission approved the plan for the slope restoration, it wasn't the last meeting, sorry, it's like a couple meetings back.
Yeah.
The commission approved it.
We
The
didn't have
motion
the
was worded in a way that, you accepted the work plan for the actual slope work, but not explicitly not the planting plan. But I guess the question is, one of the concerns, I guess, that was noted about that was the ferns that were proposed. You sent some kind of clarifying information, Ryan. Maybe if, I don't know if you have it, that picture of the invoice, maybe the commission can see it, see what you do.
So I know there was initially a concern about the size of plantings and what size hole needed to be made through the fabric to install them. The ferns came in 1 gallon pots, but the actual root ball was much smaller. So the excess dirt we just removed. So essentially it was a small tubling. And then for the shrubs, the willows that were put within the fabric lift, those were tubulings also. So we made very small incisions in the fabric to install those.
Could you zoom in on that?
Yep.
A little more. One more time. One more plus sign, Ryan.
So can we get a
What's that? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
little closer? The TV's pretty far away from there.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Spice bush, cinnamon burn.
So I thought we were gonna discuss what the plantings would be. And I don't remember hearing willow. I mean, if it's already planted.
Right.
It should be fine. These are from New England wetland plants. They're commonly used for these sorts of things.
Could you read those off?
Sure. First one is spice bush. Actually, let me clarify. So this is a combined list of the plantings in the BVW restoration area and the slope area. So this is the combined list of all plants used. Spice bush, royal fern, sensitive fern, marsh fern, marginal wood fern, gray dogwood, Christmas fern, sandbar willow tubulings, and New England semi-shade grass and Ford mix.
Do you know which ones were used just in the slope?
Yes.
Or any? Okay.
So for the slope area, willow, gray dogwood, and Christmas fern.
So I guess that's the question. Does the commission feel like that's okay, or do you have concerns about that? Because it technically wasn't like approved when you approved the original one, so.
We didn't talk about.
We did. The commission did talk about it, but they explicitly, when you approved this plan,
Right.
said that you're approving the slope work, but you don't, not approving the planting list. And I didn't have anything in my notes about what particularly slope work is about, but maybe we can, certainly the commission is empowered to ask for other plantings or.
But there was a mix that came from the New England wetland nursery.
Okay.
Is that?
I may have misread the thing. I guess I don't know.
No, we
But I-
did say, yeah.
Okay. I think our concern originally was the size of the roots for disturbing disturbing the list, but I think these are all native plants.
That was my understanding. I apologize if there's a misunderstanding, but I think originally we had showed, bigger potted saplings on the slope, and there was a concern by the commission of how would we install those, and tubulings would be preferred. So I just assumed that was the way to go.
So the ones that you planted in the slope are all tubulings?
Correct.
Do you know how many?
Yep, 19 willows. Actually, there was more willows because they came on a flat of, I forget how many, 30 something. But there was at least 19 willows, 19 gray dogwood, and 15 Christmas ferns.
And did we have a plan if these fail that they have to replant?
And I don't know that anything was established, but typically, yeah, we would probably say like that we would want to show that they've survived for some portion of time. And then once that threshold is met, like once we have seen that they have survived for a period of time, then we would consider the enforcement that portion. So yeah, that's the commission. I don't know if we established that. Maybe notes, Ryan, do you know if on that plan it had in the notes a requirement for monitoring or survivorship over, typically the commission would require 2 growing seasons, reports showing survivorship for 2 growing seasons. Isn't typical.
Do we count the fall as a growing season?
I don't know.
I mean, probably. I would count.
So if
the fall.
it isn't in there,
He doesn't
do we make
survive.
it a condition or?
Yeah, the commission can make note of it now, being something that they want to be required.
Yeah, there's no time frame stated on the plan.
Yeah, I guess at a minimum, would we want to make sure it had established well before we issue a certificate of compliance for the project?
For the project?
Well,
Could be both. Could be
yeah, both.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would assume that the commission would not issue a certificate of compliance if there's an active enforcement order open. But that would certainly be part of the discussion of whether or not a certificate of compliance would be issued for the project. And then it's nice to have standard of what you would expect in terms of the survivorship and the regrowth in that area, so that it's clear, like, hey, look, they've met it, you know, or they haven't, and you can go from there.
Do we have it for both areas? There's lower restoration where they did the sediment removal and they did plantings and the slope?
Recommend that those two, whatever the requirements are, should likely match in terms of like the length we want to see it have survived.
Okay.
And I think 2 growing seasons is a lot. And I would count the growing season as 24 and 25 as opposed to.
Yeah, but is there a standard? How do you judge?
I would say, well, at least for precedent for the this conservation commission, 2 growing seasons is their standard. I think that that's pulled from boilerplate.
Yeah, 2 growing.
MACC,
seasons. But how many that take hold?
I think typically that's related to the requirements for wetland restoration is a certain amount of cover of wetland plants, and then those being there for a certain amount of growing seasons, typically 2, I think. That's where likely that's coming from for what the commission typically requires. That would make sense in this instance, in my opinion.
More boilerplate that before issue that they're compliant, 2 growing seasons. So cold.
Does that sound like something that's obtainable, Ryan, that those 2 growing seasons?
Yeah, I don't see an issue with it. I'm just trying to think here in terms of, if the subdivision project is done much sooner and things are, established year 1 and seem to be surviving. I don't know if any legal or real estate issues, but I guess that's, I'm just trying to see if there's a way to go about it that doesn't hold up the whole project if things are going well on the slope, I guess. But I guess 2 years is reasonable. I mean,
Well, it would also be reasonable in terms of seeing what happens with the rain next summer. If what happens with the slope in the rain next summer, to be more to the point.
What happens in winter? Oh, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of rain. So,
But isn't this usually our standard 2 growing seasons and it's an enforcement order.
Yeah, I think that's true, Commissioner Alice, and I think, it would, when this certificate of compliance request comes before the commission, it'll be at their discretion of how they want to pursue that. There's the listed requirements in the order of conditions of what's required certificate of compliance. And then certainly you want to take into account this enforcement order and how you factor that in. But it is typical that the commission would require 2 growing seasons.
I think we should say 2 growing seasons, and if you guys are actually done with the project sooner and we go out there and everything's like wildly viney, covered with all these plants, and there's no chance of them being wiped out, and maybe we say it's good. We have our fallback.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking, this has been going on a while, so I've kind of lost the track of where we started and what exactly the what we've reviewed and approved versus what's still in discussion. So maybe having, maybe deciding on an upcoming meeting, Julie's here, and we just everybody agree, okay, what's been done is good, and then this is just how we get to the conclusion of this enforcement is, it will be the topic of discussion for that day. Because I'm sure she'll have opinions.
Is the slope completed, restoration?
It sounds like, Ryan, is the physical, excavation and lift work is completed?
Yes, that's correct.
So I guess I don't know if the commission would feel comfortable saying okay, you're okay with that completion as it is. There's not at this time requiring anything else for the slope work. It seems like acceptable, at least in its
Has
current
anyone
form.
visited since they finished?
I visited at the end of the 22nd, but it sounds like that was before they did the plantings.
Yeah.
But
I think
can
at
go
the
again.
least, they ought to offer some photos of the completed work.
And can you do a site visit?
Absolutely.
And when does the wood come out?
Our plan was, once we got the commission's blessing, then the wood forms would be removed.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess the question is, if the commission, are you cool with having wood forms removed now, or do you want to wait until the next meeting after I get pictures of the plantings and all that? fun stuff?
I'd rather wait till you
Well,
see it. But he's
I don't think we have to wait till next meeting. I think we can wait till someone looks at it
Someone made you.
and it looks good.
Yes, well, it sounds like Doug says, wait, you say yes, but the rest of the commission.
Well, there's been so many redos on this project just to be on the safe side for their sake. I would think leave the wood in and make sure it's all good so that they don't have to redo anything again. Because unless it's in the way of something.
Ryan, what's the harm of keeping the wood in?
I don't see a harm to it right now.
Plus, it probably helps keep the soil in place more while the plantings are taking root. The longer the boards are in, the better chance
In
the
theory, they
soil
shouldn't-
stays
yeah.
stable.
Shouldn't need the boards to stay stable in the final form, but.
But it doesn't hurt.
Agreed. Sorry, I'm catching up my notes here. Okay, so it sounds like
But,
okay, cool. So
We can do a site visit and then get final approval next meeting.
that sounds good. And it sounds like additionally, that's also true for the plantings, though. Generally, there's no notes on the plantings right now.
Yeah.
There's no notes on the work right now. And then the last piece, I don't know how to get into this because the in-stream remediation, I don't know if you want the full commission here to be part of that discussion, but where we left off was based off of my discussions with Professor Scott Jackson at UMass and the biologist at Mass Wildlife. They did not recommend any kind of sediment removal within the stream. The wildlife, Scott Jackson had recommended potentially like rewooding the stream or doing some kind of improvement within it. The Mass Wildlife person kind of leaned a little away from that and was thinking that might not be a good idea. Just you don't want to change the condition there, potentially in a way that it never was. And then the last piece was they both seem to think that potentially that it doing some kind of in-kind invasives removal may be a good kind of remediation in lieu of that. But we never determined if that was something the commission definitely wants to do or not. And we never determined what the size or what that would look like, how much area. I also know, I see Garrett is here. I don't know, you had emailed me potentially about this Valpo item, and I can, if you're interested, I can give you an opportunity to have comment if the commission's okay with that.
I kind of think we ought to wait for Julie to be here for getting into that so she can, because she's going to have opinions, I know, and, you know, it'd be nice to just kind of hear it all at once. I mean, I guess if Garrett wants to tell us what he thinks, we could listen to it now, but I mean, and that's just my opinion too.
Matters, right?
That's what I was thinking,
I
but
think-
it was never just decided on officially. So
I think the last sticking point was how much area. Was Ryan gonna come back to the commission with,
we never requested anything yet.
okay,
So
But I thought we were gonna, well, yeah, I mean, it's fine to wait till the next meeting, but I thought we were gonna hear from Pasquamic because they're butters, right?
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I was waiting for, was if the commission was feeling like they want to go that way. But yeah, Garrett, you're here, I've made it so if you want to, you can make a comment, if you have anything, it's just, preliminarily, and then we'll certainly keep posted at the next meeting, we're gonna be talking about it too, so. Yeah, you should be able to meet yourself now.
Hi there. I feel for all of you, particularly for Ryan. I'm happy to wait until the next meeting if you're going to have a more complete discussion.
I think I think having Julie here is the right thing to do. I'm sorry for you to sit here and listen to us for the last 2 hours, Carol.
It's always fascinating.
that's putting it nicely.
Yeah, yeah, right, Pinocchio.
Okay, yeah, and then if you have email, if you have anything in interest, you can always, of course, email me or anybody comments about this can always do that. But I'll obviously be in touch that Thursday before the next meeting, as I normally am. So for the other items you're interested in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so requirements for this for the next, doesn't sound like there's any requirements right now, Ryan, for you guys, other than hold tight and be ready to come to the next meeting to discuss all of these items further and get formal approval of the slope and things, all that good stuff.
Okay, we can do that.
I'm sending final photos.
Oh yeah, you could send pictures, but I will also do a site visit. But feel free to send
Yes.
anything, Ryan, but I'll go out.
Thank you.
Sure, we'll do.
Okay. The commission is ready to move on.
Okay, definitely ready.
Have someone here for, is item, actually for item 8, community, the Glacier Community, if someone's willing to take that item out of order.
Do I have a motion to take item 8B out of order?
I move to take 8B out of order.
Second,
All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Carr?
Aye.
Commissioner August?
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Hi, Barbara. I see you're still here. Thank you for waiting so patiently. If you want to, I can just hand it over to you. Well, I don't have to make you a post. Hold on. There we go. Okay. You're free to unmute yourself at any time. Just as a little preamble, whenever you're ready. They're going to the CPA for a request, and sounds like potentially Barbara was willing to give an update of what you want to do and potentially maybe ask for a letter of support, but you can take it away, Barbara, when you're ready.
And she's still muted.
Oh yeah, you're still muted. Can't hear you yet. Down at the bottom, along your screen, the bottom left, the last circular button should be what does it for you.
Now am I good? Okay, all right, got it. All right. So I'm Barbara Walbert. I'm from the Land Conservation Committee at Lathrop Communities. And I'm here to just give you a heads up that in a month or two, we will be collaborating with the Kestrel Land Trust and eventually also going to the Northampton CPC to propose a fairly large 3-year project for invasives removal in all of our CR land that held by Northampton, that held by Kestrel, and on both campuses. And we intend then to try to bring our invasives removal on all of our contiguous land on both campuses up to a certain level, which will allow native plants much more easily to sustain themselves over a larger area. And we'll be using all of the methods that we've been using for several years for invasives removal. And what I want to assure you is that what we're proposing is already permitted by you. So I just want to not have any, oh, is this permitted questions coming up, which is why I'm coming to you now preliminarily, even though we haven't even submitted our proposal yet to the CPC.
Well, it's very exciting news, and that you'd be able to do the work, and also that it's already permitted.
We thought so.
Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, did you want to try to get, I don't know if it's appropriate for the CPA application process, but to get that request letter of support from the commission, or just something that's saying that commission agrees that it's within the activities, or?
I couldn't understand all your words. The sound quality on my end is very hard. Speak a little slower, Cassie, and see if I can get it.
Yeah, sorry, I know I'm way too fast already, but I didn't know if one of the actions that might be requested, that you might want to request of the commission, was a letter of support, which the commission has done in the past for like grant applications and things like that. Which would just be, the commission would vote to do that if they want to.
Right. Well, we would request a letter of support. We are not quite yet ready with the final version of the proposal, although it's mostly done. We just have, you know, us over here at Lathrop with our Quaker values. We have this committee to check with and that other committee to check with and these residents to talk with, but we'll get there.
Do we need to motion that?
That's what the commission's done in the past, and I don't know, sometimes applicants will like submit a template, which I don't think you've done yet, Barbara, but that's okay. But just generally, it sounds like confirming that the work is within what the permit that's been issued already, because that permit is pretty sweeping. Go forward for the eviction, for the CR.
Yep.
For those needing different methods, be outside of that, it might be helpful for helping the CPA understand that there's no else required from the Conservation Commission for this.
There we go. And the purport of the project is well, let me say, we started out with a comprehensive inventory and plan by Land Stewardship, Inc. in 2022 and 2023 of all of our lands on both campuses. And we have those reports in hand and we'll be submitting them. They are wonderful and they're extensive. They list all of the invasive plants that they found upon a visit. And then they give a map with the density of invasives in each different area. So here the invasives are less than 5%, and here they're 5 to 10%, and so on like that. So we have maps of all of our area, concentrating on the CR land, showing where the invasives are more and less dense. And then what Land Stewardship did for us was to say, we suggest that these areas be first priority, depending on how much money you have, these second, and these third, And they gave us cost estimates per acre for each of the areas of priority. It's a wonderful piece of work. And it sets us at Lathrop now up for the next big leap, shall we say, to bring all our contiguous lands into a single level of control, let's say, so that we don't have all the spotty stuff that they found, which is, you know, this area is almost totally clean, and we have some areas that are almost totally clean. And then this area is okay. This area we've only started recently, or we started it and then we didn't have the money to follow up, and so it's gotten overgrown again. It's like that. So we're wanting to bring all of it up to a certain level and to connect it to other contiguous lands and also to our landscaped campus, because we would like to see the whole of our land as a single ecological system where animals move back and forth. And so do we within the various parts of the land. And so, as Doug Talamy has shown, you can do a lot for wildlife right in your own landscaped areas, right in your own yard. So we're taking all that view towards our land and trying to bring it all into a habitat, into an ecological system that serves everybody.
Very exciting. Excellent.
So what do we need to do? What are we doing?
Motion to issue a letter of support?
Motion to issue letter of support to Lathrop County Invasive Species Plan.
Second, and can we just make sure it's tied to the fact that we have already permitted the methods which are being proposed? Because that predates my involvement here.
Sure. All right, so I hear a motion to issue a letter of support to, provided that it is tied to everything that's been approved to date.
Yep.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Carr?
Aye.
Commissioner August?
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Commissioner Whittemore?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Cool. Thank you, Barbara. I'll get
Thank you.
that as soon as I can. When did you say you need that by?
I think it will probably be late September or early October before we actually submit the proposal.
Oh, I can certainly get it before that.
So we'll talk, yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Exciting. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Right to regular agenda order.
Where is regular agenda order at this point?
6A.
All right, back to 6A.
Sorry, no updates.
No update.
Okay. Do we have updates on any of the other enforcement actions?
Yeah, sorry, item C. So
Okay.
476 East Street. Just update being that I did site visit. I went up there, I met with Ms. Jordalis, and she showed me, it's very overgrown in that area where the original clearing happened. But it's not clear if the plantings that she was required to do survived or not. Well, I tried to walk around the area, but they weren't immediately apparent, which to me kind of indicates to me they might not have survived. I found one kind of woody stem that was like 3 or 4 feet high, but it was totally bare. But my recommendation would be maybe come back in the late fall, once some of the other vegetation has died down, and see what's still sticking out. Because if they haven't survived, it might be that the commission would require her to replant again, because the plantings she did were not the size that the commission asked for. They were smaller.
Yeah.
And then the other note was that there does appear to be some mowing happening around on the edges. One closest to the road, DPW keeps mowing that area. And then seemingly kind of just within the right of way, but they're concerned about it getting stopped up, I guess. And then I'll talk to DPW about that, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if it was DPW doing that and not her. I don't know why she would just mow that one spot. And then the other pieces along her abutter, they seem to be mowing just a strip along it, which is not sure why. But
So what do we?
so I think that maybe once I come back in the fall, the commission can make a call. I mean, you can try to make a call now if you want of what you want to require related to that. Seems like the focus was getting those trees to come back was the main focus. But that would be my recommendation. Sorry, not to kick it down farther, but to come back in the fall.
Excellent.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Sounds good.
Sound good.
Do you know what was planned?
I do, but I have to look it up. I can
Oh,
look it up
okay.
if you want. Okay. But she does, yeah, she did, I have that information. Okay, cool. Next one, 93 Northampton Street, just a note that in September, they were supposed to start the BBW restoration work in the far fields. I need to confirm with them that they're gonna start. That was the plan. I'll have that for the 9/11 meeting.
Which meeting?
What? 9/11 is when the next meeting is.
I'm just chuckling over 37 South Street because it's been 10 years since we
Oh,
issued
Lord.
that enforcement order and
I can look at, that's something I keep looking into and trying to be like, where's the thread on that?
10
And I can't
years.
remember.
yeah.
I will try. This is falling down on the list, unfortunately.
I think,
It's a little insane.
I think,
Yeah, I think that might be the case.
I don't think there's anybody left that could ever do anything about that.
Maybe he's dead. Shouldn't we take it off the list?
Unless there's something recorded on a deed somewhere.
I would hesitate to take that action yet. I'd like to research what was the last status of it and then figure out what's the current status, then go from there. Just because it's on there, so I don't want to just ignore it.
Yeah, okay, anyways,
Okay, cool.
hard to believe it's been 10 years.
I'm glad you're having fun. Okay. And then last one, 10 Industrial, just an update. He was going to do that replanting, or I can't remember what it was, also in September, just seeing, he was gonna add that fern planting. He had trouble acquiring the ferns, so I'll be checking in with him.
This is Industrial Parkway.
10 Industrial Parkway, that's right. There were some fern plantings required that haven't been completed yet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If that's okay with everybody, we can go to, on the next.
Yep, open space updates,
And no updates.
no
Yep,
updates.
it's pending in the spring.
Any compliance updates to report?
Let me double check here. Okay. We did Lathrop, we did Ferry Street, did Loudville, 50 Florence.
Oh, yeah.
I still need to schedule another site visit. So I know we're going wicked fast when I last talked about this. Basically, they've had a small breach in the erosion controls where some sediment went into the 100 buffer zone just beyond the controls. They cleaned it up. They rebuffed all those controls, really beefed them up. And it rained again and it got washed out. Same story. So they cleaned it out. I just need to go visit again to see the clean out and the fix and get that confirmed. But what they need to do is come to the commission for a more permanent solution because there was a slight error in the grading. They don't need to change the plan. They just need to get the grading to how it was proposed in the plan. So that
This was where? I'm sorry, the
sorry,
school?
this is the 50 Florence Road solar project.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes. And so it's just a little influx of like, when are they going to do that grading work? But also just confirming that the controls are back in place. I've been in communication with them verbally on the phone. They have done it, but I want to go back out there and just see it again. So.
96 East Street is the one I've been thinking about too.
Yes, yes. So yeah, Jeff again wasn't available to come today. I have been out to the site since numerous times, but one of the big concerns that the commission had was what would, they kind of installed that pipe. So this is the trail, Mount Tom Trailhead, and there was a change made to the stormwater management system that was not previously approved due to an error in understanding of what that change process is. So it's been installed. But I can share pictures if you guys want to see it of what's out there. I haven't noticed any kind of erosion coming out of that outlet pipe down the slope towards East Street or anything like that. But yeah, if you want to, we can look at the pictures at least.
Wasn't there a question about whether the pipe was perforated all the way or just at the end?
That's right. That was a question. There was a question of like let's see. I have the notes here. No, here we go.
Yeah, I think we were quite asking about groundwater too, where the pipe goes through.
Yep, there was a concern whether
Yeah.
there was groundwater being received.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it doesn't, I don't know. I can show you the pictures though, maybe that's the best thing to do. We can go from there, but I'm still in communication with Jeff about it, does plan to come back and talk about this.
How about we
Yeah.
wait and look at the pictures
Okay.
with Jeff and all that sort of stuff and get out of here earlier?
Cool beans.
Yeah. so we can accomplish it.
So I guess what I can say is like, there haven't been any like major crazy things that have happened since then, at least, so.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to wait to then.
Okay.
Okay, cool. That's the last one, so the minutes. We have the minutes from the July 24th meeting under general business. I've not yet completed the 8/14 meetings, apologize for still being behind on that. But I got corrections from Commissioner Carr and Commissioner August, which have been incorporated.
Motion to accept the corrected minutes for July 24th, 2000.
Second.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Carr,
I.
Commissioner August, Commissioner Weeks, Commissioner Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Okay, next one, 359 Main Street, possible violation. So, talked about this at the last meeting. A resident reached out to me. They were concerned that there was, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers being used in areas that the order of conditions for this project that originally happened, I think in 2006, included an in perpetuity condition that was explicitly included on the certificate of compliance, saying that those could not be used within the 100-foot buffer zone and within areas that stormwater runoff into wetland areas, so the basin, stormwater structures like that. They were concerned that they were being used. I reached out to the president of the homeowners association and the property manager, because it's not one single owner anymore for this large parcel. And here's what I got. So let's see. The president of the board of the homeowners association, he explained that they want to be compliant, and he put me in contact with their landscaping company. Mr. David Elliott, who's the president of Lawn Tech Lawn Care, called me, and he also sent me the following email. The email says, "Hi Cassie, as a follow-up to our conversation in regards to our approach to lawn care at Hampton East condominiums, before each application is applied, we typically would send a list of possible herbicides or insecticides to the property manager based on different weeds or pests we are seeing in our area for the time of season. When we arrive at the property, we apply a granular fertilizer to all turf areas that are safe to get fertilizer. We then spot spray for different weeds that are growing on the property, only spraying the areas that need to be sprayed. There are 2 areas that we understand to be designated as possible wetlands that will require a 100-foot buffer, and they are along the west side where the retention area and the back northeast corner, which does line up with at least the delineation we had from back in 2011, I think. So that description matches typically. As for the list of pesticides, not all of those are used each visit. After treating the property, an invoice is sent letting the management company know that what was applied and the rate it was applied. If there is any more information needed, please let me know." And then I have a note on here that when I spoke to this person over the phone, he explained that they are very willing to make changes in how they are conducting the lawn care required by the commission. But he explained that he wasn't gonna be able to come tonight because he had a conflict, but could come to a future meeting if needed, if you guys wanted more explanation of how they're doing things there. One thing that I asked for was like, do you have a map of where you're applying the material? But he said no, he didn't have a map. They just have an understanding of when they first started treating there, they walked the property and were told where they're allowed to go and where they aren't. When we discussed the plan, it seemed familiar to him of what the delineation was. So, you know, it's one of the things like, they're certainly aware of it now where they're supposed to do the work, where they can use these chemicals, where they can't.
Yeah.
I don't know what the commission would like to pursue in addition to confirming that or,
The areas he described as not putting pesticide down, does that match up where they're not allowed to do it?
in my opinion, it seems that is the case.
I mean, does it really matter? Like, what if it's within 5 feet of there, though? It's gonna get into the wetland anyway.
I know, so it's more like it's like compliance with what this surviving condition is, I think. You know, I don't know, I guess is really a thing of it too, like, maybe the commission is empowered to require more, but I'm not sure, frankly.
Well, if he's not spraying within the 100-foot buffer, right? What else? Nothing more really. Yeah. What about fertilizer? Does that fall?
It says here that fertilizer, we apply granular fertilizer to all areas that are safe to get fertilizer, which I
I
think,
read that.
yeah, I think that he's meaning outside of the areas that they're allowed to do it, based off of when I spoke to him on the phone. If that makes sense, or outside of the buffer zone, but I can ask for additional clarification if you like.
I think the best, I don't know, in my opinion, it sounds like the thing to do would be just to like say, this is the condition. That doesn't sound like what is happening is really in conformance with this condition. Please, come up with a plan to adjust your practices and let us know what that's going to be or something like that, maybe. Or unless you think you're complying with the condition, in which case explain to us how you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
Yeah.
think that they are, but because they're saying that they feel like they're outside of it. But I don't know, because the resident who reached out was like, no, they're definitely doing it in there. And then the person that talked on the phone was like, they felt pretty confident that they were staying outside the 100-foot buffer, but they're open to changing their practices in any way that would make the commission more.
Was there any proof that they were doing it?
No, yeah, it's just kind of.
Yeah,
Their
I mean, these folks are
experience.
getting put into a position of proving a negative, at least potentially, and that's always a challenge. But I think if this individual could come here and say, this is what we're doing, and these are what we understand are the requirements, and we're complying, I think that would be a real positive first step.
Or
Okay.
confirm that, these are the order conditions.
Can they let us know what they're using?
Yes, and they have, but I can ask for that again, because the residents get that information. The person who reached out to me shared that list,
Oh,
and they explained that that list was seemingly correct, except for one thing that wasn't in use. I can confirm what that was. But yeah, I can also just ask for like an explicit list of like what you're using.
is there monumentation on that?
I don't think so. I don't think
Maybe
so.
we
It
should,
didn't look
I
like-
don't really know what it,
Well, it's just,
looks like.
it's an older order.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't think that the commission was requiring that previously, like when that order was issued. And so what survives is anything that was listed on the certificate of compliance as an ongoing condition. And that's what I think the commission is really empowered to enforce, unless something that they're doing is just explicitly in violating the Wetlands Protection Act. I don't know that it is.
can you pull that up from 2006?
I have it. Yes, I
Oh, you
can.
have it?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have the orders is copied, and the delineation from the certificate of compliance is there, and the certificate of compliance is there as well.
so we can't add to that once it's put in place.
No,
Yeah.
no, unfortunately, no.
Let's just remind them what the order conditions were, make sure they're sticking to it, unless we get hard proof that they're not complying.
And do you want someone to come to the next meeting?
Sure.
I guess so.
You don't think it's needed, if he's saying they're doing everything correctly.
Well, of course he's gonna say I'm doing everything correctly, because that's what everyone says. Maybe if he has to face a panel of his peers.
If we ask someone to come, do they have to be in person, or can he do that?
Yeah, oh, no, yeah, you can definitely certainly do it remotely. That's fine either way. They can come in person or remote. Because the commission hasn't issued an enforcement order. They're not, like, we're kind of just requesting it at this time. They said they were open to it, certainly. The commission could potentially issue an enforcement order and require it, but I'm not sure that we have the grounds to do that yet. I don't know if we want to go that route. At this stage, we certainly have power to do that.
Yeah.
No, our meetings are certainly long enough about this.
As long as he knows what the order conditions are and what the map looks like where he shouldn't be spraying, just to reiterate where they shouldn't be doing it.
Right, so they can tell us and we can go over it.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so what's the final set? Yes or no for them coming? I know, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I have it clear. Oh, and it's gone, sorry, Garrett, and you can still make a comment here if you like, but you just, in the chat, he just noted that Pascomic is in a butter to this property.
Oh, okay. I think they should come with Earth Remoter.
Get a trail cam.
I think we're gonna need better snacks if our meetings are continue to be 3 hours.
This last three have been pretty long.
Does, if Pascomic, no, if Pascomic is in a bar,
No
do
complaint.
they have any thing they want to show us or?
That's up to them. If they
Tell
have
us,
any additional
or-
information, they're welcome to share it, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is one I'm gonna butter too, so I butter too.
Okay.
Myself or whatever.
Tell them we just really want to meet him.
Okay.
Okay, fan.
Get a pizza.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's helpful to me and I will do that. Last two, if you're ready.
Yep.
Next one was, preliminary review request for Cliffview Manor off Allen Street. This is, 34 this year's circle, I think it is. It's part of the Easthampton Housing Authority. And basically the question is, do they need an RDA or do they need an NOI or is an RDA acceptable? And the reason I wasn't sure is because it's a pretty small area of work that they're trying to do. And there's only portion of it is in the 100-foot buffer zone. But the storm drain that they're proposing, the riprap area basically ends right at the BBW line. They sent me an email today saying they could shift it back. Oh, sorry. Quickly. Garrett just in the comments said just that there's a lot of important habitat down there in the wetlands. Yes, in the surrounding area for 395 Main Street. Thank you, Garrett.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the drain outfall is going right into the stream, right?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. So he I don't know because the requirements for stormwater standards is you can't do that. It can't be right there. But if the riprap is there, the outlet is actually slightly set back. So I guess, Dan, I don't know what your opinion of it is. I will show you my latest email from them.
So this is like, it's a new parking lot, 2 new parking lots, a
Mhm.
building, a stormwater basin, and
Yes.
the drain pipe is all proposed.
Correct.
So
Tree clearing and then,
probably would need a stormwater permit anyway, right?
that he does seem to be aware of. Yes.
So it's probably easier to do a NOI instead of a stormwater permit and an RDA separate, especially having a pipe going down right down to the BBW.
Agreed.
I don't know.
We
Yeah.
said I can adjust location to completely avoid impacting.
Where is Allen?
Yeah.
Where is Allen?
Yeah. This email that I received from them today,
This,
I can adjust location to outfall
oh, yeah.
as the intent is to completely avoid impacting the wetlands area. So I figure I can also shorten the length of the riprap apron. It is currently longer than the required length to better depict that the project will not impact the wetland area. And then I said, if you're gonna be that close, you definitely need to provide us which they always do, but the data sheets and the delineation, how they got there so that they truly are outside of it, if you're getting that close, so. But yes, okay, so.
Yeah,
it's like-
well, I was looking for the 100-foot buffer.
That's okay.
There, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, I got you. Thank you.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that'd be tree clearing or
Mhm.
possibly, I guess I would need more information,
Okay,
which probably means like an NOI is probably the right thing to do.
makes sense.
If we're asking for more information to decide whether it should be an RDA or an NOI, it's like,
Didn't you say if they're gonna need a stormwater permit? That we should just do the NOI anyway.
well, I don't know, that's just my.
It's
That's
true.
what-
Most of the, yeah,
That's
typically
what
the
I
two
would
are
do,
paired.
just because I would
Yeah.
do it doesn't mean.
You're our
Put it that way.
stormwater.
In terms of precedent for the commission, typically those two things are paired.
Yep.
Sometimes we do just a stormwater permit. That doesn't apply here, but we have also less commonly done an RDA with a stormwater permit. For example, St. Bridget's, we did that.
Well, he's gonna need stormwater permit regardless of what changes he makes to
Correct.
that he's proposing possible changes, right?
So are we doing the stormwater permit?
It seems like likely because typically if they already have to come to us for something, which we know they will, it's gonna be an RDA or an NOI. that we do the also, I'll do the stormwater permit, just kind of makes sense in the past so far. Sometimes the planning board does it if it doesn't need to come to us.
Right.
This game.
Okay, I know, it's, yeah, there's some of them are easy for me and some of them are more of a stumper, so. But yeah, if you guys think NOI, I can tell them that. Go from there.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely can't permit any wetland impacts on our head. I mean, we can't, like an RDA is a permit, right? So we can't say do wetland impacts. This makes it look like there's clearing, you know, at minimum clearing going right down to the wetland. There's definitely a stormwater permit, it looks like. So I don't know. I would do an RDA. But if they.
An RDA?
Yeah. No, an NOI. But, you know, you know, because if they came to us with an RDA, you know, probably like 50/50, yeah, do an NOI, because there's, I don't know. So, but with this, there's not quite enough level of detail on this sketch to know what exactly is happening, and what you know, are there big trees coming out, like, if the pipe doesn't, you know, if the pipe ends short of the wetlands, then what happens in between there and the wetlands? And, you know, like, why couldn't they go down the existing lawn area with the pipe rather than go through the woods like it makes this way?
Okay, cool. So sorry, I'm just,
Oh, no, you didn't do a site.
Nope, I'm gonna cite, yeah, nope, I haven't been there, so,
Okay.
basically, well, I'll make the recommendation that they should go for an NOI. Anyone can always do an RDA, and then the commission would be like, yep, and we're finding of this RDA is that you're an NOI, so this won't bar them, it's just a recommendation, so I can go.
Yeah, I had a question. Another thing is, that's the property here. Looks like the property line goes right up to that structure.
I think that they might be expanding the property as well. That might be a separate thing, because they were reaching out to the planning board as well, or zoning, whatever, because I think they might have purchased.
Okay, because
Might
the
change.
Squamish owns that.
Oh, do they? That looks like a single family home lot.
Yeah, I know. That's why it doesn't,
I don't know then. I don't know, but, it's a
I
good
mean,
question.
it doesn't look like that's even their property, so I don't know.
I certainly can't do work off their property, so.
It's just woods.
Just wood.
Carrying around the list.
Don't sit next to Deborah August.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, recommend NOI.
All right.
Thank you. And the last thing is update for wetlands ordinance.
And I
We're
would.
still going. What is the next meeting? September 5th, I think? September 5th. Working on it.
Wait, what's September 5th?
The wetlands ordinance working group will
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
continuing their work.
For the bees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those in favor, roll call vote, Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
Commissioner August, Commissioner Weeks, Commissioner Whittemore, motion passes. All right, it is, 8 something.
It is 8:50.
Holy.
And the next meeting is scheduled for September 11th at 6 p.m.
Oh, yeah, I would love to not be here that day, but I don't think that's possible with,
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Can I just show up for that one thing and then?
I think in a technical sense that is
What
acceptable.
about remote? Can you do remote?
Yes, you can also attend
Why
remote.
don't you
You do remote.
participate remotely and then just abandon us?
Yeah, I'll just
Do that.
turn my camera off and then pretend I'm there.
Lord. You can, yes, you can, I think
Just kidding.